with more. Tracy.
The president has just released a statement saying, so sad to see the plane go down in Philadelphia. More innocent souls lost. Our people are totally engaged. First responders are already being given credit for doing a great job. More to follow. God bless you all. We're also hearing from Secretary Duffy, who said that he had briefed the president and he had briefed Governor Shapiro. We are expecting to hear from Governor Shapiro shortly. You heard Mayor Parker say he was on his way. The secretary says, I've offered full support of the Department of Transportation to the governor and local officials. As we know, FAA and NTSB will be investigating. We also know ATF is on scene. We also got this statement from the American Red Cross. Our hearts go out to all those affected by the tragic incident. A team of trained Red Cross disaster workers is on scene to help those who have been displaced. Again, we know that at least 3 homes were impacted by fire. We're working with our city, state, and federal partners to assess any other needs that we can assist with. Any other updates can come from the Office of Emergency Management. We have been updating you with statements that they have been saying. And I think people are listening as we watch the crowds sort of start to dissipate from where Aaron is anyway, and leave the area, be safe, stay away from all the debris. And Office of Emergency Management was very concerned in the very beginning when they had the black smoke with what could potentially be in the air, and they were telling people, get inside and close your doors.
Listen, I hope y'all having a wonderful Friday. Happy Friday.
And I want to go back to what Claudia was talking about.
Saying, if you caught my live this week, it's a lot going on.
The expert she was talking to about the company that was running this air ambulance flight. 600 to 700
I was
flights
counting down
and
and getting out of January. I promise you I was. And today's the 31st. And
plane.
The universe said, we got one more for you. We got one more for you.
His account of this Learjet 55 being a durable plane,
I said, Lord,
that flies long distances with excellent pilots. And what he said about the pitch of that plane going down.
Too much. I told y'all it was too much. Man, that's too much.
Something that just wouldn't normally happen. And very troubling.
I laid down for a minute. Y'all know anytime I go to sleep, it go down. When I go to sleep, I woke up and learned of this. I said,
the instrumentation on this plane was
shut
duplicated.
Just shut it. Just shut the front door.
There were many measures in place, checklists that these pilots go through to avoid any kind of malfunction or anything out of the ordinary. And they're well-trained pilots. It's been many hours.
I want to go live, and I wasn't going to. I didn't think we were going to talk about it.
And if I can let our control room know, the button was pressed down, so I was unable to hear a lot of what was being said. I was hearing the control room where the producers
current events matters, because it's just been a lot going on.
So I believe that is fixed.
Been a lot going on, and
but we are seeing video.
The universe was like, "Ma'am, we got one more day. We got one more day. The 31st. We got one more for you before we get into Black History Month. It's been on and popping in January.
At this hour, we're still seeing folks who are shaken and devastated by the impact of this crash, and we're hearing responses and reaction from federal officials. We heard a response from the president,
in the last days, only God
governor,
save us. Like
several
I'm with you on that
one in Philadelphia.
I don't know how else you
hear
slice and dice it. Makes sense
from
to me,
witnesses like Aaron Baskerville spoke to, saying that he saw devastating scenes. People were describing the cars on fire, and then someone who witnessed a man walking away from the wreckage in flames. All of those point to.
I'm going to kind of mute this for a minute, because prior to starting up this live, just some background information of what they were saying. They were saying that plane was only in the air for like a short while before it went down, and it was leaving a hospital. So it left the hospital at like 6:00 p.m. and then, or after 6. And it was down by like 6:30 when the crash. And the plane had only flown for 4 miles before the crash took place. And they're saying with a plane, you know, it's you get to 4 miles much quicker than probably when we think about 4 miles in a car. I just muted it. I wanted to say something so y'all would hear me. I'm unmuted, but I wanted y'all to be able to hear what I was saying.
We've also seen some people as they walk by. I spoke with another woman.
What's going on? But yes, the plane crashed, and it seemed like
this crash happened. She said she was actually inside with her family celebrating a birthday when the
flying a
explosion
patient
happened, they
someplace.
stepped
Y'all know
outside,
how
kids
sometimes
with
somebody
them,
got to be
to see fire, to see the smoke,
flown
just extreme moments of fear,
to
she
another
said,
location.
trying to
So
understand
it's
exactly
believed
what
that
happened. We've
that's
heard a
what
lot of
happened.
that from people tonight, trying to wrap their
That
heads
there
around
were
exactly
a
what they
medical
saw and
team
just how
flying
close
with the
this is, hitting
patient.
close to home for so
So
many, as
my
you can
headline
see,
says
in such a
plane
residential
carrying
area
6,
here. We're on
including a
St. Vincent
girl.
again, just on
So
the other side of Cottman.
it seems
A
like
little bit
the
earlier, I
girl
also
was the
spoke
patient
with a
and they
man
were
who
flying
was
her
at Cottman
to
and Roosevelt
someplace,
at a
and
gas
that's when the
station there,
plane
and he described an extremely
went down.
frightening scene. He says that he looked up, he saw the sky again turn bright.
Very tragic.
What he said seemed like an explosion, and then he
There were
closed the door
witnesses
because there was
who
debris coming his
seen
way.
it,
I know we
heard
talked
it.
about that debris.
We
He
may
says he
catch
gave it a
some of
moment,
that
and
in
then
this
he
live.
ran toward the flames, he
But
told us.
yeah,
He said that he could see cars on fire, homes on fire, just incredibly terrifying. He said he was still in shock as he was telling me what he saw. We'll take a soundbite from him. You can hear just how emotional it was and
yeah,
what
you
he
good.
saw
I
in
had
those
muted it for a
moments.
minute, so it probably was me,
I
friend.
was at the door over here at the gas station, and all you heard was this loud bang when the whole building started shaking. You literally right here, you could see a whole flames just engulf inside in the sky. Like, there was huge fire, huge fireball going in the sky. So I tried to, keep the door shut because debris was flying over here, and customers were trying to like run outside and stuff. I didn't want any of our customers to get, hurt by any objects flying in the air. So I tried to keep the door shut. After a while, I opened it up and I went to go run over there to see, what exactly happened. And a lot of people over here like in shock, like just scared and like running and screaming. People were crying.
Again, shock, fear, you heard it there. That man also told me he's feeling a lot of sadness. He said that he ran that way because he wanted to do something to help, but when he got there, he said there wasn't much to do. He didn't know what to do other than he was there so early that he was seeing the first responders arrive on scene, and he said that he was just pointing to the firefighters, here, and that was what he was feeling in the moment. Again, just still in shock as he recounted that to me. Back here live in this area, again, we're on St. Vincent, just on the other side of Cottman. These homes affected. You can see some people walking here. Police have been asking people if they're in the area, hey, do you live here? Where's your home? That kind of thing. They're asking people to stay away from this area, as we heard the mayor ask people a little bit earlier today to stay away from the area. It is quiet here. You'll see people walk by every once in a while, but it's pretty quiet. And again, police have this road shut down to traffic as well. Just one more time, I want to show you, they have these barriers up to the actual streets here with homes where these people live. And the people we spoke to, they were going in to get belongings. They told us again that their power and gas shut off in their home. Not sure when it's going to get back on. And the one man I spoke with said he's not really sure where he's going to stay tonight. So a lot still up in the air, so much uncertainty, so much shock here. Such frightful moments.
About this
And
crash and the people, the plane crash and the people who were on it, what I've come to learn,
still pretty active, guys. Send it back to you.
is that it was a
Siobhan, you have
pediatric
heard some
patient who was receiving
unbelievable
care for a
eyewitness
life-threatening
accounts as well,
illness
since you've been on that scene for the last
in the
couple of
United
hours,
States.
right?
There was aboard a Learjet 55 that
Unbelievable. I mean,
crashed
you heard
into
the man at the gas
Philadelphia.
station and how he ran.
So the
Another man I
girl was
spoke
one of
to,
6
he
people
said
on
he
the
was
flight,
walking, he was a couple
returning
blocks down, but he was walking
to
right on the boulevard when
Tijuana,
this happened.
Mexico.
And he said
The
that
others on
the
the
first
plane
thing he
included
noticed
her
was just
mother,
the
a
sky
pilot, a
light up.
co-pilot,
And then
a doctor,
he saw
and a
what he said
paramedic.
appeared to be an
The
explosion.
jet
And he
rescue
pulled out his
ambulance
camera and he
does
showed me his
not
video, and it was
believe
just
anyone on
the
the
sky
plane
filled with smoke. He kept on telling me,
survived.
so shocking that it happened at all, but that it happened so close.
It
And
said that the
again, we
patient was
talked about it
sponsored
all
by
night, but just so densely populated, all of
partner
these homes
charity
there,
to
those
undergo a
businesses. I spoke
life-saving
with another
treatment
woman. She told me
in
that
the
she
U.S.
usually she's a delivery driver, and she
So
usually
says
drives
she
around that
did
time. And she
her
says
course of
it's the
care
busiest
and
time.
she
It's
was going
incredibly busy
home.
in this area.
So
So again,
it's
people
still little
just in
girl
shock.
had,
And that woman who I spoke with,
she
who
was
was
here in
having
the U.S.
the
to have
birthday party,
a
and
surgery
then to step outside
because
and
she had
be pulled away
life-threatening
from that and
illness.
instantly see,
So someone put
her
up
running
money
towards
for her
fire
to
and
come
try to
here
explain to her kids
to
what was
get
going on.
treatment.
Incredible
And
stories
I
and tough
suppose
to wrap
maybe
your
they
mind around
were
out here,
heading
guys.
back home
Siobhan,
because
thank you
they
for
were
that.
from Tijuana,
Right now, we
Mexico,
want to
but
go back
the
to Aaron
treatment was
Baskerville, who was
here
near
in
that
the
scene
U.S.
as well, with a councilman. Aaron, what do you have?
Yes. So like to
Yeah,
really
Jackie,
think
we
about
just
it.
ran
This
into
young
Councilman
girl,
Anthony Phillips right now. I know we're waiting for the governor to talk. I know you're just arriving on
she was
scene.
already fighting for
What are
her
people
life with
telling
trying to
you? What do
live
you
with
want people
this
to know?
illness, wherever she had
You
going on.
know,
I
first,
don't
let's just
see
say
an
that
age for her
hearts
yet
go out to all the families,
in
the
this
victims that
article
are
that I
going,
was reading.
going through this right now.
But
But what we've been hearing from
she
residents,
had a
I mean,
life-threatening illness.
our district that I
So
represent
someone put
is
up
literally
money
3
for
blocks
her to go
away
get
from
to
this
come to the
tragedy.
U.S.
And
to get
residents are
treatment,
wondering literally like, what's
which is
next?
a blessing in
the
itself. Like,
plane
think about
crash, they
it,
have
a
their oldest
blessing in
week.
I don't mean
itself
to
to
interrupt you.
just
I don't mean to interrupt.
be
Right now,
able
the
to
mayor's going to talk. I
have
believe
the
the
finances
governor's there
put
too.
up for you
Let's go
to
to them,
get
and we'll come
the
back to us in a
treatment
little
you
bit.
need or the treatment for your child who has a life-threatening illness.
On Cotman
Only
Avenue,
for
and it did
you to
occur
go through all
shortly
that and this happened.
after 6
Let's hear
p.m.
what the mayor has to say.
Again, we have no reports on the number of fatalities. So we are asking everyone for their thoughts and prayers for all who may have been impacted and affected by this tragedy.
Happy
Several
Friday.
dwellings and vehicles were also impacted. And so we are urging people, particularly those families who live in the surrounding area, to please stay home if possible. If you see any debris, and those who are conducting the investigations have repeated consistently, please do not touch anything because it is still an active investigation. Just call 911, please, if you see anything. Investigators and all of our federal, state, and local partners are working as expeditiously as possible during this very difficult time. New information that we want to share with you, that shelter is now available at the Samuel Fells High School located at 5500 Langdon Street. Samuel Fells High School, 5500 Langdon Street. If anyone has been impacted and you need shelter and support, it is readily available for you. In terms of our federal and state partners, I want to say a special thank you to the NTSB. They are here on site now. The FAA, the Pennsylvania State Police, Pennsylvania DEP, of course, our police and fire departments and OEM. I am here with Governor Shapiro. We've been in constant contact since it started. You'll be hearing from him shortly. But I also want to say a special thank you to our additional partners who we have spoken with, our federal leaders, U.S. Senators Fetterman and McCormick. Thank you so very much. All hands on deck. They wanted to make sure any and everything that we needed from the federal government, those supports and services are available. Congressman Evans, Boyle, and Scanlon, our congressional delegation, a special thank you to each of you for your support. I also need to affirm that locally here, Senator Joe Picozzi, Rep. Solomon, Reps. Nielsen, Doherty, who represents this area, and Bellman, Commissioner Dealey, and Council Member Driscoll was present. If there was ever a time when we needed to affirm what the One Philly philosophy means, the time is now, and I'm very proud about how our federal, state, and all of our local partners are working hard to deal with this tragedy. I now want to turn it over to our governor and to say thank you, Governor, for your support and being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. The mayor preaches about One Philly. She talks about a unified approach to governing every day. What you're seeing here is a unified response to an awful aviation disaster. For as awful as that aviation disaster was, tonight we also saw the best of Philly. We saw neighbor helping neighbor. We saw Pennsylvanians looking out for one another. I want to reaffirm the comments the mayor said about all of the different agencies working together, and I want to especially thank and salute Philly Fire and Philly Police, who did an extraordinary job this evening. We know that there will be loss in this region, and we want to offer our thoughts and our serious prayers for those who are grieving at this moment. The mayor knows, and I want you all to know, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania stands firmly with our partners in the city. We have, at the request of Commissioner Bethel, 45 state troopers who are on the ground right here in Northeast Philly. We have 25 members of our PennDOT team who are here right now. We have members of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Authority who are here, including our director, Randy Padfield, who joins me behind here. We also have members of DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, who are here to make sure that any hazardous.
Can you imagine being just out and
addressed.
about and seeing
And as
something
you
like
heard
this?
the mayor reference, we're joined by several state representatives and senators. I want to thank them. They will make sure that whatever is needed for this community gets to this community. I also spoke earlier this evening with the United States Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy, who offered his full support to Northeast Philly. And as the mayor alluded to, he has dispatched 4 members of the FAA to Philly, and there are 4 members of NTSB on their way as well. We have all the resources that we need. And again, as the mayor always says, one Philly, we are unified in our approach to deal with this emergency.
Right
Again,
now,
I'll just
the
end by
government
sharing,
officials,
my
they're just talking about just
my
trying
wife,
to
Lori, our First Lady,
make sure everybody's
and on behalf
good.
of 13 million Pennsylvanians,
hands on
we are
deck,
all here
coming
in
together in the
Northeast Philly
community
tonight in this very,
to
very
unite
difficult
and
moment.
just,
Thank you, Mayor.
make sure
Thank
everybody's
you
good.
all. When we have additional information to report, we will come back and give another briefing. But now we want to let our federal, state, and local partners do their jobs and go to work. We'll report back to you when we have more information. Thank you all so very much for your patience and understanding.
So they don't know the details behind the crash, but
One of the
we
headlines
do.
coming
So
out of
I'm
this
going to do
news
a
conference you
recap
just
on
heard
what
from
had
Mayor
happened.
Sherrell Parker and
I
Governor
got, listen, I know what the mayor and the
shelter is
governor
now
don't know.
available
So
at Samuel
y'all,
Fells
listen,
High
y'all might want to
School
go
on
ahead and share this
5500
live
block
stream with
of
them while they
Langdon
over there
Street
trying to
for
figure out the hell didn't
people
happen.
who have had
Let's
to
do
be
the recap
evacuated
on
and
what
need
had
shelter
happened.
immediately.
So
You heard the mayor thank
what
the
happened was
NTSB, the
a
FAA, and
pediatric
state police
patient who
who
received
were
care
on the
for a
scene. The governor
life-threatening illness in the U.S.
lauded the
was
united
aborted a
response to an
Learjet
awful
55
aviation
that crashed in
accident that we're
Philadelphia,
seeing,
according
saying
to
neighbors are
Shigo,
helping neighbors. He
spokesman
thanked
for
and
Jet
saluted Philly
Rescue Air
Fire and
Ambulance.
Police. He also
The
said that there were
girl, one of
45
6
state
people
troopers
on the
on the
flight, was
ground,
returning
25
to
PennDOT
Tijuana,
members and
Mexico.
members of the state
The
emergency
others on the
management,
plane
as
included
well as
her
members
mother,
of the
a
Department
pilot,
of
a
Environment
co-pilot, a
Protection.
doctor, and a
And
paramedic.
we heard from Governor Shapiro
Jet Rescue
saying,
Air
as
Ambulance
awful
does
as
not
this
believe anyone
aviation
on the plane
disaster is,
survived the crash.
he said, we saw the best of Philly.
All I can
And
say
we
is
heard
the
that from
patient
many
was
of our
sponsored by a
reporters
third
there on the
partner
scene,
charity to
the
undergo
eyewitness
life-saving
accounts of
treatment
how
in the
everyone
U.S.
was helping out and shocked at
And
what
she
they had
fought
seen. But Governor Shapiro was saying,
quite a lot
it's one
to
Philly,
survive.
which
And
of course is the mantra
unfortunately,
from
this
Mayor Parker. He
tragedy
saw that,
was on the
and he knows
way
there will be
home.
loss, but his thoughts and prayers
Due to the
are with
privacy law,
those who
Gold
are
said he
grieving. Of
couldn't
course, we don't
give
have
he couldn't give
details
more
yet on the
details on the
number
patient's
of
condition
casualties,
or treatment.
but except for on the plane, those 6 people.
Hopefully, I
on
got
board.
all that. I didn't
We're
want to
going to
mute
go now
the video
to NBC
again.
10's Aaron
But
Baskerville,
yes,
who
little girl
we
came here
interrupted
from Mexico to the
go to
U.S.
that
to
news
get
conference with the
treatment for
governor and the mayor.
life-threatening
Aaron, are you
illness,
still there?
and she lost her life
Yeah,
with
I'm
her
still here,
family
Fred.
as they traveled,
Councilman Anthony
as they were
Phillips
en
had
route to
to
go
leave
home.
at that moment, so we don't have him
Yes,
live anymore. But I can tell you, he is
he
very
fought long and
passionate, and
hard,
he is
and then
demanding
this
answers
is.
right now. I asked him a question. He said it's beyond.
So
His
when
answer
you're
was it's
dealing with all
beyond
that, the question is, was it
unnerving.
her
He called
time?
it
Was
sickening
like the Lord
what
say,
happened
okay,
out
baby,
here. He
it's
said
time
he's
for you
been
to
getting
come
a
back
whole bunch of
home
calls from his
because
constituents.
she done
This is
fought
his
the
district right over
fight
here, close to the area where
to
we're at,
live,
Cotman and Bustleton,
to
and
you
he's
know, to
demanding
overcome
answers.
whatever
He
her
says we're at a
medical conditions
crossroads right
were,
now in
only for
aviation,
her
and we're going
life
to
to
turn
be
around some of
lost
his
this
comments for
way.
later
See,
on
this is
over
what
the
I be
next
talking
hour or
about,
so.
y'all,
So you're
where
going to hear
sometimes
directly
I
from
feel
him,
like
and you're not going to
we'll
need me to
worry about
paraphrase exactly what he
something
said.
being like
But
the
once
result.
again, we're just going to kind of
Like,
meander down
okay,
here
how
once
can I
again,
say
just to
this?
kind of give you some of the view over here.
Sometimes
That's the
I feel
parking
like
lot over
people
there
will
where you
overthink
see a lot of first responders
something
and a lot of
and be
people still
so
stationed
worried
out here
and
as well.
fearful,
The crowd
but that
has
ain't even the thing to take you out.
dropped
It be some
significantly
other
because of
random
maybe the
stuff,
weather or
y'all, that
just
can
quite
take you
frankly
out.
being out here for several
Like,
hours watching this whole
let's
thing
just say the
unfold. The smoke that was
C-19, you know,
billowing
everybody
from
was
some of the
running
buildings
scared
over
about
there
that. Who
as
gonna
well is
die
not
and this and
happening
that.
anymore, so that's a good sign.
But people getting
But
taken
I've been
out for
talking to you
all
guys
these
about
other
the
random
eyewitness accounts that
reasons
we've been hearing
that had
from
nothing
people.
to do with
Some of
that.
those things that
You
just,
know, so this is
have
why
you
I
shaking your head
say,
because you can't believe what
you know,
folks
stay
are telling
prayed
you.
up
We're in one of the
and
neighborhoods
don't
that
be
are
so
nestled in
overly
off of Cotman
consumed
where some of
about
the
just
power was
the
turned off.
negative or
We happened to
what
talk to a
may or
woman
may not
named
happen,
Dolores,
because the
and
way this
she
universe
heard it.
works
She
that
said
I've come to
she
see in my
heard
44
the
years of
explosion.
living
She
is that
felt
that
the
thing that
ground
you
and the
are
homes
worried
around her
about,
shaking. shaking.
That
And,
ain't even
let's
it.
just hear
That
right
ain't
from
even
her.
what
Here's
you
what
need to
she
be
had to
worried about.
say just
It's
a
some
little
other
while
stuff
after this
that
plane
you're not
crashed.
even tuned into.
I saw a bright
That's
light
gonna
in the
come
sky,
in and wreak
and then
havoc.
my window shook, and then I just
And this
ran up
is an
there,
example of that.
and I saw
This little
all I could
girl
see was
did not lose
about
her
8
life
or
over
10
this
cars on
life-threatening
Coppin
illness.
Avenue
It was
just
something
burning and just
random
popping
like
with
this
explosions. And they said
plane
it was a
crash.
plane crash. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way that's a plane
TM
crash.
say the wrong
And
place,
when
the
I got
wrong
up to
time,
Leonard
right?
and Coppin,
And she was
I
over,
saw
like, that's what I'm saying,
cars
y'all.
just all over Coppin Avenue, engulfed in flames and popping, I guess. I didn't actually see the plane. I just saw the
Yeah.
cars.
I didn't want to mute the video, so I was trying to talk over it.
So you're just hearing right from her right there.
Most of the time when I do these
quite
news
frankly,
clips, y'all, I
folks
don't
are
even
saying
talk. Y'all know that. I'll
she
just type
can't
in the
believe
comments.
what she was hearing. She can't
But I'm
believe
just
what
talking
she
tonight,
was seeing.
hoping y'all
That
can
the
hear me.
plane actually crashed in her neighborhood, and Cottman at one point was engulfed in flames, and all sorts of cars were engulfed in flames, and she was hearing all those different popping noises and things like that. What we're going to do right now is that we're going to take a moment. We're going to probably go back, hopefully, to our home base over here, and we're going to get to that sound from Councilman Anthony Phillips that I think everybody should hear. And we'll come back to you guys shortly so you guys can hear directly from the councilman who just arrived on scene here, literally just about 5 minutes ago, guys.
All right, Aaron, thank you for getting that for us. As we heard from Mayor Sherrell Parker, there are many people who are going to need shelter as a result of this plane crash. There on your screen, you can see what that location is. It's Samuel Fells High School, 5500 Langdon Street. We don't know the number of people impacted, the number of people who will require this shelter, but we're thinking it might be many when we see the video of those flames and the eruption of that fireball.
Absolutely. And we've seen accounts from our early reporting on the ground that PGW, PECO, and the water department were on the scene, and we heard Aaron Baskerville report.
Right now, it hasn't been reported any on-ground injuries
where they had their electricity cut off. So we know that folks are unable to.
I'm about to mute. I muted the sound on this news clip. I want to say this. It was reported that there's fires to homes, fires to buildings, cars. So when they arrived on the scene, child, they didn't know where to start because they just seen flames everywhere. They say the water that's on the ground, it ain't from it was raining, I guess from them trying to put out all the fires. They say it was just a lot going on. Let me turn the volume back on.
6 people on board, according to the FAA. And you're seeing new images now of this plane. And this is exactly what the mayor was talking about.
6 people on
wanting
board,
people
including
to not touch anything.
Young girl.
Police trying to evacuate everyone because that whole area is part of the debris field of the investigation.
They said this was a highly populated area where this plane went down.
Been the effect.
Regardless on what time of the day or night, it's a heavy populated area.
The city announcing that is available to people who need a place to stay.
To see something like this right in your backyard, not just the flames and the thick smoke, but that, which you never see. Part of a plane, and exactly what we're seeing in this video, people getting much too close to it, trying to take videos of it and pictures of it. We saw Shaira had.
Why they ain't got it blocked off?
Plane,
I ain't
right
never seen them like that. People that close on it.
And
they said they got to investigate this. These people all up treating it like they at the museum.
Not to get close to it. If you see anything, to call 911. They don't want this because of the danger associated with it. And it's an
that man was sitting down posed.
I said, wait. They will carry all the clues that they get from all of these debris pieces that we're seeing people near. This is why they've been pushing people back. It seemed they were pushing people back farther and farther at the very beginning of the response. Let's go now to NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp, who's been tracking the forecast for us this evening.
Yeah, we've been looking at what the observations were at the
Bob
time.
McGowan, welcome. Said the third plane down this week. Maybe I'm one behind because I only know of 2.
The plane did
Where was the
take
third
off from
one?
Northeast
I know of the
Philadelphia
DC
airport, which is 3.5
plane crash
miles
that was
roughly from the crash
I went
site
live
here.
talking about it
3.5 to
this
4
week.
miles,
I think it took place,
which means we already know that the plane was in the air less than 1 minute before it came crashing
less than
down
a minute.
here. So we also like to look at what were the observations at the time. Of course, we know that it was raining most of the day. It was cloudy. We like to look at some of the visibility reported to the airport. This was the latest observation taken before the crash, which was about 10 minutes before. And the observation was visibility was down to 6 miles. And typically when we see dangerous levels of low visibility, you have those levels closer to a quarter of a mile. So again, this was not incredibly dangerous, but yes, the visibility was decreased. Our wind speeds, we did not have a wind advisory. We did not have wind gusts upwards of 40, 50 miles per hour. Today, our wind speeds were sustained out of the southwest at 10 miles per hour. The strongest wind gusts we saw today was around 20 to 25 miles per hour here. We still have rain coming down actively at this time. We are just about to see the clearing edge of some of this moisture. It will continue.
So there
track
was
off
a
the
plane
coast. We have
crash
probably
in
another hour or
Alaska.
two left
No
of these
fatalities
light rain
though.
showers coming
The
down
pilot
here.
was able
We
to
have been watching the
safely
low clouds throughout most of the day, which
escape the
does make it
plane.
a bit more
And
difficult
the crash
to
took
see,
place
to
during a
take off, to
training
land
mission
planes,
on
especially
Tuesday.
small aircraft.
Well, that
You
was
can
the same
see
day
widespread
as the
cloud
DC
coverage is
plane
what we've
crash,
been
because I
dealing
think
with
that was
most of the
Tuesday
day.
night.
These are
I
actually our
learned
cameras
about
that
it
normally overlook the city. You can barely make out the
Wednesday
Jefferson Building
morning,
here.
I think.
I just show you this to illustrate that, yes, we have been dealing with cloudy conditions throughout most of today, low-hanging clouds. You can see slightly decreased visibility at Philadelphia International Airport. But overall, when we're talking about Northeast Philly, our visibility was at
It's
6
probably
miles.
going
Right
to
now,
take
it's down to
longer
5
to
miles.
count the
We're
loss
still
of
seeing
lives as
light
far
rain
as like
showers. Our rain
people
totals
on
for
the
the entire
ground,
day
I would
are only
think.
going to range between a
I
third
mean,
of an
because
inch up
they
to
were
1
like,
inch.
it
So this
just,
is not
it was
even
a
an incredibly
heavy
strong
populated
system
area where
bringing
that plane
a
went.
lot of rain or flooding
And
rains or
some of you
anything
may
like
have
this. This
seen
is
it.
a
I don't know how
typical
long you've been on
rainstorm
this
that we're
live,
dealing
but
with
you can
throughout
see the
today.
plane
Our
like
wind
taking
speeds
a
even right now are still
nosedive
ranging between
down
about 5 to 12 miles per hour
into the
sustained.
ground.
We
I don't know if it
possibly
went
saw
into a
wind gusts
building or
around
if it just
20,
kind of hit the
25
ground.
miles per hour at the most. We've turned on our radar
But
shot
they
here.
said
You
the
can see
plane
there is
wasn't even in
still
the
rain coming
air
down
for a minute
actively in
before it went down.
Northeast
I know they
Philly.
said it
But
was
again,
only
it is on
had
the
gone
lighter
like 4
side.
miles.
At this
And
time, we will send it
it
back to
doesn't
you.
take
But yes,
long to get to
rain is
4
going to
miles
continue
with a
coming down for
plane.
the next hour or two. But we are
And
definitely
the
at the
plane had
tail
went up
end
like
of this
after
rain
6
system.
o'clock and was down
Brittany, thank
before
you for that.
6:30.
Right now, we want to go to Siobhan McGurl, who is
You see it
there
just
on the
taking a
scene,
nosedive.
getting
It's like as
eyewitness
quickly as it went
accounts,
up in
as
the
the rest
air,
of
it
our
came
reporters
down.
have as well. Siobhan.
Hey, right now we're showing you more of the neighborhood perspective. So we're at Bustleton and St. Vincent. Cottman is just on the other end over there. So if you're familiar with the area, that's where the businesses are, Roosevelt Mall area. If you come over this way here on St. Vincent,
Good night, Suze.
this
Thank
gives
you
you a
for
look at the
joining. Good
neighborhood,
night.
some
Take
of the
care of
homes
yourself.
affected in this area. You can see police line this road all the way down to the boulevard, down to Roosevelt Boulevard area. Police have this area shut down to all road traffic. They're also not letting people really walk by. If they are going by, they're saying, where do you live? And they're letting people go into their homes if needed to get belongings. We know people who were going into their homes, they told us that power and gas are off to their homes, most of them in a little bit more near where this crash happened. So people are going in to gather their belongings while they can. Others not allowed to stay on this street for long at all. We were even asked to leave this area. Police have this area pretty tight. They're asking people to stay away. While we were here, we were speaking to some people who were able to go in, some people who saw this happen. Again, we've been talking about just these intense moments of fear and shock.
I would
People
say
who saw
definitely an
this
urban area
happen.
because everybody who
Some
I've
people
seen
describing
speak
stepping out of their
about
homes just to
their
see the fire.
eyewitness
We heard
encounter
people
has
talk
been
about
black
the
men.
homes on fire,
I
the
haven't even
cars
heard a
on
woman
fire.
speak. I've heard
Just
women
catastrophic scenes. I just spoke with
on
another
camera
man. He was
screaming
in the
like as they
shopping
were
plaza, stepped
recording,
outside, and then
you
just ran
know,
the other direction. He's
everything that was
actually
taking place.
walking
But
around right now because
I've
he
seen
can't get
2
to his
black
car,
men
so he's
like
waiting for some
talk
friends to pick
about
him up
like
over here.
what they
Of
seen
course,
or
debris
heard or
all in that
whatever.
area near the shopping center. And then a little bit earlier, I spoke with a man
Roosevelt, what they
who was
say,
at the gas
Roosevelt. That
station
sounds
just
like a black.
maybe a block and a
I
half
live on
from where the
Roosevelt.
crash happened, and he saw it happen.
Oh yeah,
He
I'm gonna
closed
say
the
it's
door because of
definitely an
all the
urban
debris coming his
area
way.
where
And
it
then he says he
happened.
actually ran towards it.
Based off
Could
of the street
see the
name,
fire,
child.
could
I
see
got to
all
think
of
about
that
Jaguar
debris.
Wright. I'm
A
like, who
terrifying
from
scene.
Philly?
He described
I
the
think
response
Jaguar
that
Wright says
happened
she from Philly.
almost
So,
immediately. Here's what he told me.
who else? What's her name?
They
Jill Scott.
completely,
Think she's from
the
Philly.
Philadelphia Police and Philadelphia Fire Department did a heck of a job. They got here
So yeah, I
very
started
quick,
thinking who's from
and they
there.
assisted this whole situation very
But
fast.
they've
They
only
did a really
talked to
good job.
black men that I've seen.
But they blocked everything off. People kept trying to walk, towards the smoke. It was black smoke. You could smell like the jet fuel, and people were like walking towards it. So they're trying to tell people like back up, back up, back up. So they did a really good job in assisting everybody to get away from the scene and everything.
Yeah, praise for these first responders who have
I'm
been
wondering
working
how far
for
spread
hours.
is
We saw that
the
immediate
scene,
response when they first
because
got on
like we've
scene.
seen people
It has
taking
been
pictures
hours
with
now.
part of the
Right now, we're
plane. To
seeing a lot
me,
of
it
these
seemed like they
officers
would have
again
the
taking
police would
people
have had
off
kind
the
of that
street
section
unless
kind
they
of
live in
blocked
the
off.
area, letting them go into
But
their homes. You can see an
I
officer
wonder if it's
escorting a
so
person down
widespread
right
to
now. We've
where
seen this happen if they live in the area. The
the
officers are
police
letting the
don't
people
even
in
know
just to
like
get their
how
belongings.
widespread it
Most of the
is to
homes,
even try
right
to
on,
block off
right now, we're more
everything
towards
for the
Boston, so we're seeing some of
investigation.
the
You know what I'm
homes here with the
saying?
lights on. But if you go a
So
little bit
it is still
deeper into
early
the street,
from the
that's
start
close
of
to the
when
crash, and
everything
there we've seen a
happened.
lot of the
Because
homes.
I don't
Again, they
know
told
if
me
we're
no
on the
power,
same
no
time
gas. So,
zone as Philly. What's the time zone there?
we've heard the
Because
mayor ask people to stay away from this
is that
area.
Eastern
It
time?
seems as though
With
people
is
are
it
using
like
that. I'll tell
after
you,
10 there? It's
if you drive
10,
around
12 here. I'm
Food
in
Road's still
Georgia.
blocked off, and even this one close to
But
foot
so it's
traffic.
still kind of
Guys,
early.
that's the scene here right now. We'll send it
It's
back to
still
you.
early, but
Siobhan, we just heard from that gentleman you
I think
interviewed
it's probably
praising
going
the
to take a
response. If you think
minute
about
to
it, it
really
really is
learn about the
remarkable that police
impact
were
of
able to
lives from this
respond
accident.
as quickly as they did, considering how bottleneck traffic was and really always is in that area during rush hour, Northeast Philly there.
Absolutely. I spoke with a woman earlier. She said, not only is this a busy area, a populated area, how was one of the busiest times for this area? And he said that response came in immediate. He said he felt helpless. He wanted to do something to help. And what he said he was able to do is just say to the firefighters, here. And point
Okay,
in
thank
that
you for
direction
that,
from
PM.
what he was
That we're on
seeing,
the same
running
time
to the
zone.
scene
Okay.
immediately there.
Never
But yes,
been to
absolutely
Philadelphia before.
praising the first responders, and they continue to be here, and they will be here, I'm sure, for much longer, for hours. We've heard the mayor say that it was just the first briefing of many.
Demontis
So
has a
it
president
continues.
spoke yet.
We know
He
many
made a
people were trying to get to
statement.
their homes.
I
Of
got
course,
his,
announced the shelter that
but
is
he
available
hasn't
to
been
do to
on
encounter anyone,
camera
Siobhan,
that I've
who
seen since I've
was
been
fearful that they
covering
would
it.
need resources, that they
But
would need shelter,
let me
not knowing
see.
the status of their home.
I did. I spoke with the man who was
He
going
released
in,
a
and they had
statement. He
a
said, "So
backpack, and
sad
another
to
one had
see
a
the
bag,
plane
and
go
they went
down
in
in
to get belongings. And
Philadelphia.
again, they told me that they
More
didn't have
innocent
electricity and they
souls
didn't have
lost.
gas.
Our
They
people are
said thankfully they
totally
didn't see any
engaged.
damage
First
on their home, but
responders
it
are
wasn't
already
that close to where it
being
happened,
given
but it
credit
was
for
in
doing a
the
great
vicinity.
job. More to
And they said that
follow.
they weren't sure when they'd be able to
God
get
bless
back. So
you
I
all.
wish he was around here now
President,
so I
he
could
said
tell
it
him
on
about
his
the shelter.
social media.
Hopefully he's learned that information, because he told me he has no place to stay otherwise. So a good thing. Good to hear that shelter is now open.
Much needed, unfortunately.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sachs. I haven't
Thank
seen
you.
the
Thank
age
you.
of the girl. I just see that
And during
it was
the
a
news
girl, and
conference with Mayor Parker and
she
Governor
was here
Shapiro,
to
we got
receive
an idea
surgery in
of
the
just
U.S.
how many
from
people
Tijuana,
are
Mexico,
on this scene and how many people were trying to
with her family or
access it.
parents,
We
and
know that
they were
there
in
were
the plane
35
with
state troopers
medical
there,
workers.
25 members
But
of PennDOT,
the
members
article
of the
I found
Office of
didn't
Emergency
give her
Management at the
age.
state level, and the member of
It just
the
said she
Department
was a
of
girl.
Environmental
Yeah.
Protection, because of
So we
what
may
we're
learn
seeing right
that
there. The plane, part of the plane on the ground, in the
probably,
parking lot,
by
pieces of the
tomorrow.
plane strewn everywhere. So the
You're
mass
welcome, Sachs. You're
response
welcome. Thanks for joining.
far beyond firefighters and police crews of who had
Sachs, you
to
said he don't
get
need
close
to
to that
speak.
scene.
Yeah,
He
the
went on. He
mayor
probably
and
went
every
on
official
Twitter,
that we've
X,
heard
whatever
from
you
this
call it. They say
evening,
he put it. He
telling
put
people
some
to
on his
stay
social media.
away from this
So he'll
area.
probably
Obviously,
be
we've seen
talking
reporters
by the
from
time
the
the sun come up in
beginning
the
of
morning.
our reporting.
Stay
We saw
tuned.
lots of foot traffic, and
It's been
the
a
foot
lot
traffic
going
has
on, y'all.
died
I
down
went
quite a
live a
bit
couple
because
of
they
days
closed
this
off
week
these areas.
on
You're
the
not
road,
seeing this many
and I
scenes
hadn't
where you're
gone
seeing a
live
lot
in
of
a
people
couple of
standing
weeks.
around close to the
But
investigative
it's
area.
been
But this
so
is
much
exactly
popping
why.
off in
These are
these
pieces of
streets.
evidence that will
It's
help
just
them
like
piece
I hadn't
together
been knowing where
why
to
this
start
plane
with
went
coming
down
out
in the
here.
manner that it went down, and
And even
exactly
tonight,
what happened
I
leading up
wasn't
to
planning
this
to
crash.
talk
We
about
want to go
this,
now to NBC 10's
but
Aaron Baskerville, who was standing
before
by
I went live, I
with
learned
more
this
of what
happened,
he's
so
seeing
I had
out
to kind
there.
of
Aaron, I
pivot
see
and switch
lots of
gears because I
first
wanted to
responders
cover the
and
story.
police presence behind
But
you
it's
there.
been a lot going on this month, and that's what I've
Yeah, I
said
mean,
this week
the
when I've
police
gone
presence is
live is
still
that
here, and they're still
January has been a
keeping
lot
us and others away
going
from certain
on.
areas, certain parking
And
lots,
all the way up
certain
until the
roads. So
last
the
day
work,
of
of
the
course,
month, child.
continues.
It's just like,
The
really?
crowds are dying
Like,
down
when you really think
significantly
about
out
like
here as
everything,
well.
to
So
me,
I know
my
that's
memory
what
goes back to
some of the first responders,
Louisiana
the
with
mayor
that
wanted the
food
folks to
driving
leave
into
this
the
area.
on
I had
Bourbon
people
Street and
also
running
just
into the
messaging me
folks. I
on
believe
social
that's how
media
the
that
year
live
got
right here
started.
and live
I
close
think that
by.
was the
And
first
they're basically also telling
thing
me a new account that
that
the
happened
smell
this
is really
and
strong
then
in
it
those
just seemed
homes
like
that are
from
right
there
near
just
the
got
site of the
crazy.
plane
We had the
crash. They're saying there's an
fires
overwhelming smell. So that
in Southern
kind of lends to what
California.
you were
So
saying,
that
Fred,
was
in terms of
crazy. I
keeping your
live
windows
streamed
closed
that.
because of smoke and things
Then
like
we
that.
had the
But it seems like there's a
inauguration.
strong smell, obviously taking over
There's a lot of
over
headlines
there because
around
there are
that.
several people hitting me up. But just a
Celebrities
little
that
while
were
ago, we were
invited to
talking to
perform that was
Councilman
getting,
Anthony
heat
Phillips.
and the
His
smoke
district
from the
is right around
community
here
for
He
performing.
had
We
showed
had
up just
that.
about 20 minutes ago or so.
What else
and
we
was
had this
talking
week,
to us live before we
month?
had to go to the mayor's press
These
conference and the
fires,
governor's press
it's been
conference.
on and popping.
He had all
It's
sorts of
been on
concerns.
and popping
He wanted some
during the
action.
month of
He said he was
January,
hearing from
like nobody's business.
constituents who saw the plane
Tomorrow
crash,
starts
who are in this
February, Black
area
History
wondering
Month.
what happened, why did this
I
happen,
only
and
sit and
kind
just
of what
think
they
what else
maybe
could go
needed
down
next
that
in
has
terms
not
to
gone
get
down
through the rest of the night.
because
Here's a little
every
bit
week it's just
from the
something
councilman
major has been
when I
hitting
asked
the
him a question
headlines.
just about
So
what
someone in here
happened
could
here
talk
and
about
what folks witnessed.
distractions
Let's be
and,
straight up. Let's be blunt. How unnerving is
another
this? This
black
plane
man.
goes down
I
in
told
this
y'all they only
area
talking to black
with
men out
so
there. I don't
many
know
people.
where everybody
Oh,
else
it's beyond unnerving. It's actually sickening. It's hurting. It's disgusting. The way when I heard about it, it hit me in the heart. Like it was like a gut punch, right?
I don't know.
And right
Inauguration was on the
now,
20th.
that is
So if
what
we
people are
start from the
feeling. Like,
20th
what is next? Like
until
we're at a
now,
state where we want to
that's
have
what, 11 days?
safety and security where we live, and right now there's uncertainty of whether or not we're making sure everything is
You
safe.
definitely have to
that
get in
we
office
are
and
used to
get
being
roll
safe.
roll
And I
his
think
sleeves up
that's the
because
way
there's
a
been a
lot
lot
of
going
residents
on.
are feeling. And right now I'm here to make sure that we're there for them and let them know we're going to be okay. It's going to be tough to get through and it's devastating, but we're going to get through this somehow in Philadelphia.
Man, I mean, there's not much else that he wanted to say right there. He is not mincing words. He is not holding back. He called it sickening. He called it a gut punch. He's also describing kind of what other folks were saying to him that were calling his office, calling members of his staff to find out exactly what's going on. So you can be assured that he's going to be asking a whole bunch of questions to folks in leadership, to folks who are part of the investigation, to, I'm sure, those with the FAA and others who will be on the ground here trying to figure out exactly what happened over the next few days.
Roy,
and trying to make sure
I forgot all about the
even though
snow. So
obviously
yeah,
this
we
is
had
a
the
tragic
snow.
accident, he wants to make sure
That was a
nothing
big
like this
thing.
happens in a
The crazy
heavily
cold
populated
weather.
area like here near Cotman and
Thank you for that
Bustleton,
reminder,
the,
Royal
the
Jenkins. It's
boulevard
been a
in
lot.
Cotman,
January has
as the
been
work
very
continues
busy.
here throughout the night
And
and certainly
I
the next
can't
few days
recall
as they
January
piece this
being
puzzle
that
together
busy
here.
as far
But
as with
from where I'm
headlining
standing, it's
news.
still pretty much of the
When
same.
I learned
a whole
about the
bunch of first
first
responders, a
plane
whole bunch
crash,
of
or at least the
firefighters,
DC one, because
except
that
for
was
the
the same
crowd.
day that
The
the
crowd has
Alaska one
died
happened,
down
but I didn't learn about that
significantly,
one.
guys.
Maybe
My
in
first
part
thought
because
went
of that
to Kobe
urgency
Bryant when he had him
from
and his
people there,
daughter
police,
and some other
firefighters,
people
mayor,
lost their
encouraging
lives
everyone
from a
to
plane
dissipate
crash.
the rain as
And that was
well. The
also
weather
in the month of
possibly an
January.
impact on that.
So I
But
got to
the
wondering
good
what
news is
date
that
in
the scene is
January was
quiet
that, but
where
I
you
think my
are.
research
Not long
showed that
ago,
that
it
was
was not.
January
It was very busy and
26th
frenetic there.
when he, and his
Yes,
I mean, a
daughter
whole
and
bunch
people
of
lost their lives. But it was also in the month of
Go ahead.
January at the end of the month.
No,
So
I was just
that
going
was
to say
just
you're
something I
correct, and
reflected
hopefully
back
people
on
heed this advice
when I
throughout
learned
the
of the
rest of the
DC
night.
plane crash with
And
the
hopefully folks who do have homes to
64
go to and are
people on the
fortunate
American
enough to go back
airline
to their home
plane
tonight can go back.
and the 3
And hopefully
people
the folks
on
who are going to
the
need that help, the folks
helicopter.
who don't have power, electricity, possibly don't have a home tonight, are going to take some of these shelters and other places that will be
I
opening up to help
saw
them out, guys.
on my LinkedIn, I saw
Ambassador
someone
live in
had
Northeast
profiled a
Philadelphia,
young
right
black
near the
girl
scene of
who
that
was
plane
on
crash.
Yeah,
the
we've been
American
reporting
airline
now that this was a
plane.
medical jet
And it
that
just
was flying,
highlighted
that was
she was,
taking
I think she
off,
was a
and it was
law,
in
she
the
had gone to
air
law
for roughly
school and
30
she was
seconds,
about to, I think,
traveling
start
roughly 4
teaching at
miles away
Howard,
from
teaching
where it took
law.
off before this
I
crash
think she was going to
happened.
be
And from
become an
every
associate
video that
professor
you see the
at
angle, the pitch at
Howard
which that
maybe
plane
next
is falling.
fall.
We spoke to an aviation expert who
But
talked about
she
how
looked super
troubling that
young,
is and
like
how
definitely in her
unusual that
20s,
would be
maybe like
for a Learjet 55 because
27,
of the
26.
durability of that plane, because of the instrumentation on
And
that plane.
yeah,
It's
she was on the
duplicated. It's usually
plane.
flown with 2 pilots. And there must have
So,
been a
but
malfunction
otherwise, I
for
haven't
something
seen
like
like
that
an
to
actual
happen.
list
We
of
know that there
people,
were
like
4 crew
if there's a
members,
list
including
compiled of
a
the
minor
people who are on the
patient
American
and
Airlines.
guardian on that
I just
plane,
saw
a
somebody put that,
pilot,
so
a
maybe
co-pilot, a
somebody that was
physician, and a
close to
paramedic.
her,
The minor
her
female
family
patient had
kind of
just
was okay
successfully
with just
had
going
a
on their
medical
own
procedure
socials and
performed and
sharing the
was headed back
information
to
before like the
Mexico
media kind of
on
put
that
it out.
plane. That
But
plane
that was
operated by
devastating just
an air
to kind of see
ambulance
the face
company
of one of the
that
passengers, and it
we
was
were
a young
told
black
is
lady
one of the
who
most
was just super
experienced
smart, just
air
doing
ambulance
really big
companies in
things
America,
in in the
operating
community,
anywhere between
and her life
600
was
and
lost.
700 flights a year. The plane, well maintained and durable for this kind of weather, we're told. It had freshly been fueled up before takeoff, which likely was the cause for concern when it crashed with that big plume of smoke and that big ball of fire. And ever since then, from the very beginning of this investigation, police and first responders had been pushing back the people who lived in the neighborhood, some folks having to evacuate and others just being pushed back, cutting down on the foot traffic and the vehicle traffic because the debris field of this crash is widespread. The video we're showing you showing the pieces of the plane, and we're hearing from the governor and the mayor and law enforcement not to tamper with or pick up anything, which is why they were trying to clear that scene. But just, I mean, every time we see this, all I can think about first and foremost are the people on that plane. These angel flights, as they're called, this doesn't happen every day with this. These are usually successful flights. They're taken very often and they're necessary for successful medical treatment. And so it's unusual for something like this to happen. But also the folks who live in this neighborhood to be out and about, just minding their business on a Friday evening and seeing this and wondering what it was.
It seems like it was 8 kids
there may be
on the American airline plane
that go through your mind.
I just found an article that
has
names of
people
who was on the plane.
And,
so remember the black young lady I talked about that I saw someone share her information
to
on LinkedIn.
Who live in the
her name was Kaya Duggins, K-I-A.
Shaken.
Last name Duggins, D-U-G-G-I-N-S.
No time for anyone to prepare for any of this.
He was a civil rights attorney and an incoming Howard University professor
in that residential area. We want to go to Tracy Davidson right now in our newsroom with new information for us tonight. Tracy.
So we're seeing that plane just sort of drop out of
the
air.
He attended law school at Harvard.
The plane took off from Northeast Airport.
And worked as a civil rights attorney.
The plane took off from Northeast Airport.
Very bright young lady.
And about 31 seconds later, there's no record of movement. See, look at the flight path on the screen.
She dedicated her career to fighting against unconstitutional policies, policing, and unjust money bail practices in Tennessee, Texas, and Washington,
D.C. Let's listen to this initial communication.
She worked to challenge police misconduct, fight cash bail policies, and pursue prison industrial complex abolition.
That's when the plane is preparing for departure.
She also was a White House intern during the administration of President Barack Obama.
Medevac Med Service 056
so that is Kaya Duggins.
On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
All right, and then shortly after that, air traffic control makes contact with the plane on departure. You'll hear the pilot respond.
Medevac Med Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra, 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
He says, thank you, good day. After takeoff, air traffic control tries then again to make contact with the pilot, and you'll hear they get no response from the Medevac Med Service.
Medevac Med Service, Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056, Northeast Tower. How do you hear this transmission?
So three tries to get them. There are a few more attempts from air traffic control to make contact with the plane. Next, you hear air traffic control refer to the plane as a lost aircraft.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Condition 765, we have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
Air traffic control says they are grounding all flights, no flights coming in or out. Earlier this evening, we spoke with Arthur Walk. He's an aviation expert, talking about all the factors that could have brought this plane down so quickly after takeoff. He said nothing about the weight of the plane could have had an impact. Let's listen.
The airplane was at a relatively light weight, only 6 people aboard. That's not a lot. And even if you add the equipment, that's not a lot either. So nothing about the numbers of people or the equipment on board or the way it was configured would give you any indication why the airplane descended in the manner it did.
Again, we've seen the video and we know the timeline. It was about 30 seconds in the air before it went down. Jacqueline and Fred?
Tracy, thank you. And this is a time, of course, where people are shaken, they're unnerved and at a loss for how this happened. A lot of people need prayer and focus. We want to go to Paul Randolph right now, who is a Pennsylvania State Police chaplain. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Yes, so horrific tonight, but if I can be of some help, that's what we're here for.
People definitely need comfort. You have seen devastation like this before. What is your advice in moments like this?
Well, I think folks need to realize that the closer you are to what happened tonight, so if you were a neighbor of where the crash took place, if you were working in that area, if you were in your car and you saw the crash, you have a much higher potential to have some reaction to this that is going to cause stress. And I want to emphasize that these are normal reactions to an abnormal, horrific event that they've been a part of.
Yeah.
So
this is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
An event like this is part of what we call the terrible 10, where people are going to have stress reactions, and they can involve how they think, their emotions, some of their behaviors. They may have some physical reaction to it, and even some spiritual reaction. And these kinds of reactions start from the moment they witness the incident to a few hours later, to 1 or more days later, or even a week or more. And this is to be expected. And it doesn't mean that the person is going crazy or they're losing their mind or there's something wrong with them. Again, they're having a normal reaction to a very abnormal, horrific event.
And you touched on this a little bit. Clearly, we are in the early moments of this. People are still processing this. But what is your advice as we move on past this day, past this evening? What advice do you give to people in terms of what we need to do to process this over the long term?
Yeah, certainly. Well, to first of all, realize that you're going to have some extra anxiety. You're going to be maybe having some mood swings. You're going to be having stress about things that you might normally not be stressed about. You're going to be experiencing grief and various other kinds of reactions. You may have flashbacks. You may have trouble sleeping. And so realize that these are normal reactions to abnormal events, and then some things that you can do to begin to help yourself. Do not isolate yourself from your family and friends. Stay connected. Talk to others. Talk about what you experienced. Try to get as much rest as you may need. And we find that in the first 24, 48 hours, doing some strenuous exercise with some periods of relaxation often helps people. Try to get back into your schedule as much as you can. Eat well-balanced meals. Avoid alcohol or other medications unless they're prescribed by your physician. It's okay to feel lousy and to share that you feel lousy with others. Some people find writing a journal is helpful, particularly if they're having trouble sleeping at night. And realize that the recurring thought streams or flashbacks are normal. Don't try to fight them. They should decrease over time. And you should avoid making any major life decisions right now because you're stressed. And this is not the time to do that. If you are friends of someone who was close to this incident, some things you can do is be a good listener, offer to spend time with them, offer your help, but don't force it. Reassure them that you care. Maybe they need some help with some everyday tasks, or they need a place to stay tonight or for the next few nights. Don't take their anger personally if they kind of lash out. Avoid telling them meaningless cliches, and just let them know that you care and you're there to help them. And I would say people should expect these kinds of reactions to last up to 4 to 6 weeks, and they should be dissipated by then. If they continue past that point, that's when you want to seek out some professional help from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a trained counselor who's experienced with post-traumatic stress or critical incident stress.
Yeah, we've heard from people who have been experiencing this and who've given us firsthand accounts of everything that has happened this evening. Paul Randolph, thank you so much for your insight. Thank you.
Good evening, and my thoughts and prayers are with everyone involved.
Thank you.
Right now, we want to turn over to Claudia Vargas. You've been able to get important information about the flight, the plane.
Yes, we spoke with Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which owns it's the company that owns the plane that crashed today. And they shared that they have really experienced pilots. These are pilots who fly more than 600 flights a year. The team that was there, it's unclear if they've flown out of Philadelphia before, but they said these are pretty routine flights that they take all the time. They mostly focus on international travel. And so, as we mentioned before, this was a child from Mexico who had been receiving life-saving care here in the U.S., had her guardian with her. And the flight crew was also Mexican nationals, and they were heading back. Now, the flight was going to Missouri first, and then from there, it was scheduled to go down to Tijuana, Mexico, where that was the final destination. And we have a little bit more detail from the spokesperson for the company.
This was an ordinary course flight with a seasoned crew, with a very dedicated medical team, and we are just it obviously has caught us by surprise. We are shocked and dismayed, and we send our condolences. Our hearts are with the patient, the family, any innocent bystanders that may have been hurt on the ground. Of course, the families of our pilot, co-pilot, physician, and paramedic. It's a great loss. It's a very great loss. These people work every day to save lives, and it is just unfortunate that the plane went down.
You can just hear the stress there. They're still in shock. They're still processing what happened and just looking for answers to see what the NTSB can determine happened here.
Yeah.
So sad that she made that flight to get life-saving care here to save her from Mexico, and then this happens.
Unfortunate.
Awful. Claudia, thank you. Right now, we want to go back to Siobhan McGurl, who is live on the scene in this area of Northeast Philadelphia, where rescue crews are sorting through all of this, as they will for days and likely weeks to come. Siobhan.
We've been meeting a lot of people out here who saw this happen, who were in this area when this crash happened. Many of them struggling to put into words exactly what they saw and how they were feeling in those moments. You can see it's still active here right now. We're just a block away from Cottman. So where all those businesses are, we're on 1 block away. We're back on St. Vincent, more of this residential area. You can see a lot of police here. They still have the roads in this area blocked off. And here on St. Vincent, this is where many of the homes are, the people closest to the crash area here. Police are not even letting foot traffic down here. They're asking people, do you live here? While there are still a lot of police in the area, a lot of roads blocked, we are meeting some people again who saw the crash, who are still in the area. In fact, one man I spoke with was in the shopping center when this happened, and he's still here because his car is still over there. Obviously, you can't get to it right now, so much debris. He described a terrifying scene when this happened. He saw the fire, he saw the smoke. He says he ran, he tried to help, and now he's walking around not sure what to do next, still in shock. We'll share a soundbite, a little bit of what he said to me earlier.
The Philadelphia Police and Philadelphia Fire Department did a heck of a job. They got here very quick, and they assisted this whole situation very fast. They did a really good job. But they blocked everything off. People kept trying to walk, towards the smoke. There was black smoke. You could smell like the jet fuel, and people were like walking towards it. So they're trying to tell people like back up, back up, back up. So they did a really good job in assisting everybody to, get away from the scene and everything.
Yeah, a lot of praise there again for first responders. You can see just down this road, so many still on the street. So much uncertainty here. As we were standing here not 5 minutes ago, a man walked up to us. He was also in the shopping center area, and he had dash cam, and he showed us jarring video the moment that the crash happened. And he said that debris actually came and hit their car. He said for the moment he froze and unsure what to do. And then he said he got out of his car and he saw an injured boy in front of him, quickly rushed to render aid and try to get that boy help. He said that he was taken off in a police car, try and get some help. But these are the stories people are describing. He said chaos in the moment. He had a difficult time even leaving the scene. Police said, get out, get out. He said that it took him 30 minutes to get out of the area after seeing that immediate crash. And he only lives, he said, about a mile away. Again, intense moments of fear that people are describing to us. And so many people still in shock tonight. Again, as police keep this road blocked off behind me. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Siobhan, you described the man who saw debris hit his car. Siobhan, if you're still with us, and I'm sure people had no idea what was happening. Siobhan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. In fact, in the dash cam video, you can hear they were having such a simple conversation about getting his daughter's ears pierced. And then all of a sudden, you can see the crash in the video. And then he said that he felt debris hit the car. And in that instant, so much changed. And he said he just froze for that moment and then he jumped into action. He said that there was a car in front of him that debris had hit through the window. And he said that that's where he saw someone was injured and tried to help. But again, so many people feeling helpless in this situation, trying to do what they could. But just there was so much need here. The magnitude of this, hard to fully understand right now.
And while there were some people who were close enough or happened to see the plane descend so quickly from the air and crashing, I imagine there are a lot of people you spoke with who had no idea what was going on, especially in those early moments. They just knew that there was a huge police and fire response, and they smelled smoke and they saw the flames, but I imagine they didn't know what precipitated it.
Absolutely. Confusion. People were wondering what could have caused this. On edge, a lot of uncertainty. People were throwing out all different theories when they were talking to me earlier, only to learn what actually happened here.
And you also talked about the gentleman who could not get to his car. We know there was information about a shelter that is available to people there who can't get to their homes or to their vehicles. Residents aren't being given any notification about how long it could take before they're allowed back in to that perimeter, even if it's not that close to the crash site.
Yeah, no, the last person I spoke with said right now his power and his gas is off. He grabbed his belongings, and at that point he was unsure where he was going to go for the night. But thankfully this shelter is now open. We have seen some people go in and you'll just see them walk out with belongings at this point. So no update on when they'll be able to go back or when they'll have power or gas to this area. Still very active here. Police all around and again, all down this block here.
Nobody would imagine that this would happen in their backyard. Heightened anxiety, heightened nerves after what just happened 2 days ago that is still so fresh in everyone's mind on a much larger scale. But this is different because it's impacting a neighborhood, so residential and so many impacted that we'll learn about in the coming days.
And people have been bringing that up. People have been saying that they already kind of felt a little bit on edge. And now to see this happen here in this populated area, right in their backyards, in this residential area, just a lot of shock again tonight. I know I keep on saying that word, but it's the word that people keep on telling me.
Yeah. Understandable. And it'll take a long time before they get past this. The images people have seen, and then when they learn how many lives were impacted, and we still don't know how many casualties there are. Siobhan McGurl, live on the scene in Northeast Philadelphia. Thank you.
Yeah, the nature of the location of this crash is what makes it so difficult for investigators at this point, because it is a residential area and people live in on an investigation site, which is why people have had to evacuate. But you're seeing this video here of active flames of debris. Just another example of how widespread this debris field is and how difficult it might be for investigators to get a handle on this. This is in the shopping center. You just saw the signs over to the left side of your screen with the stores in that shopping center area of where this happened. Again, this happening around 6 o'clock. And ever since then, police here in Philadelphia, all hands on deck, have closed off traffic at this intersection. And you also heard the governor talk earlier about the resources that were on the scene here from the state in terms of state police and PennDOT members and members of the PA Emergency Management Authority. I want to go now to NBC 10's Tracy Davidson, who's been tracking all of the statements coming in and just the timeline of everything happening with this crash. Tracy?
And we know one of the victims was on that plane was a little girl who was here for treatment. She was returning home to Mexico after receiving treatment for life-threatening illness, and apparently that treatment went well and she was returning home. And we are now hearing from the hospital where she was being treated. Shriners Children's has released this statement saying it's heartbroken to confirm that one of our pediatric patients and the child's mother were aboard that jet rescue air ambulance that crashed in Philadelphia this evening. The patient had received care from Shriners Children's Philadelphia and was being transported back to her home country in Mexico on a contracted air ambulance when the crash happened. Because of patient privacy concerns, we cannot say more about the patient and her family at this time. Our hearts and prayers go out to the families of the medical crew and pilots who were also lost in this tragic event, as well as all the people who were affected on the ground. And we are thankful to the first responders for their quick action. And that, again, is from Shriners Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Absolutely heartbreaking to hear those stories. Like any tragedy, the initial shock when we see the images, but then when we see that, a plane on the ground in half, and then the people who were on board that plane, a young girl returning to Mexico after receiving life-saving treatment for an illness here in the United States. Now from Tracy, we know that that hospital was Shriners Children's Hospital, being treated locally and then being transported to her home country of Mexico in the middle of that when this crash took place in a residential area, a place that was densely populated with businesses and homes. We don't know how many injuries there are beyond that plane.
And Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which is the reputable company, one of the most experienced air ambulance companies in the Americas, at the helm of that flight, we heard from one of the spokespersons from that company talking about how experienced their pilots are. And we also heard from an aviation expert who talked about the plane itself, the Learjet 55, which is often used for this type of transport. It's not unusual for them to have their medical equipment loaded onto that plane. And because there were only 6 people aboard the plane with some additional medical equipment, it's unlikely that any of that would have had any impact on this crash. From what we know and from what we've gathered from listening to commentary from experts we've spoken to, that particular aircraft has duplicate instrumentation, 2 pilots who can control it. And for that plane to crash at that pitch is likely a red flag that there was a malfunction of some sort. The plane took off, and within 30 seconds of flight, 4 miles away from the area of takeoff, that's when the descent happened. And that's when this happened. This image we keep showing you from different angles, the crash happening in Northeast Philadelphia. And so
the air only 30 seconds.
The air 30 seconds. Yeah. And we know because of, we cover weather every day. We have meteorologists, and our meteorologist Brittany Ship is telling us about the conditions here. We know the visibility was 6 miles. The wind was between 5 and 20 miles per hour, low ceiling, all of that. But the aviation expert says because of this plane and because of the quality of flight, none of that would be a factor, according to him. It would likely be some kind of malfunction with the plane.
Yes, he was saying our pilots fly in conditions like this all the time, despite there being low visibility and cloud cover and a little bit of rain. This was different. When you see the pitch of that plane, 45-degree angle, he said it was out of control. And we can see that just by watching it, how fast that plane went down. He said it most likely has to be mechanical and a possible instrument failure. There was no reason for a descent of that speed other than a malfunction in that aviation expert's
And we know that people felt the impact of that crash on the ground under their feet. We heard lots of accounts of people feeling the shaking and obviously seeing cars on fire. And I mean, just a terrible scene in a residential area.
And we know that so many people will have to stay elsewhere because of this, because there were many people who lived right in the vicinity of this crash. We know that Samuel Fells High School is a shelter for those who need a place to stay. We heard that from Mayor Sherelle Parker in the news conference. Right now, we want to go to NBC 10's Francis Wang, who is live at a shelter and joins us now with more. Francis.
Jackie, Fred, we are at Samuel Fells High School. It is on 5500 Langdon Street. It's about 3 miles away from the crash site, about a 15-minute drive, depending on traffic and, of course, some of those road closures that are affecting so many people tonight. But as the two of you have been discussing there, so many people impacted, whether it's they can't get to their homes or they can't get to the car. We knew it was only a matter of time before the city announced some sort of shelter for those who have been displaced. And I can tell you the American Red Cross, they acted very quickly. They are working in partnership with the city's. We actually just saw about 5 or 6 Red Cross vehicles drive through here at the high school. It's a rather large site. You can see the school building behind me. The other side, we were able to look into what looked like a cafeteria with a lot of space, if that's where they're setting up. Again, this is very close to the crash site, so we are expecting a lot of people who maybe are just getting word, don't know where to go yet, or maybe even just need a place to reunite with their loved ones. This is going to be the place to go tonight. I can tell you also, we've been here before for other similar situations where the Red Cross has set up shelter here. So they're telling us that they're expecting to set up rather quickly. Again, the city just announced this to be the site not long ago, but we just saw a lot of those vehicles, including police, some of the Red Cross vehicles come through. So we're going to keep you updated as more people start to trickle in here at Samuel Fells High School. Again, it is on 5500 Langdon Street, a rather large parking lot. Langdon Street is just to my left here. There's only one entrance in. So if you are heading in this direction, just keep that in mind. This is a place where you can safely go tonight. Jackie, Fred, we'll keep you updated.
Francis, you may not be able to provide insight on this because it's likely you just arrived. Can you get an idea of how many people have arrived? Are you seeing a full parking lot with people pouring into that building or much lighter?
No, not yet. In fact, most of the vehicles we've been seeing come through were either Red Cross or police officers. It is a huge parking lot and it is completely empty right now. But as I mentioned, Red Cross is just now getting here. We do expect them to set up rather quickly. As I mentioned, they do have experience setting up shelters like this before, specifically here at Samuel Fells High School when people are displaced. Places to go. So we are hoping to get an update from them soon. It didn't seem like they knew how many people they were expecting. Even earlier, I know that the 2nd Police District headquarters, we stopped by over there because we were told that's where a lot of people were told to go if they needed any sort of information or they were trying to reunite with their loved ones. But the officers there were telling me no one had really showed up. And then we got word from the city through the mayor there that this would be the site for the night. So we're seeing some cars drive by unmarked, not sure if they're with the Red Cross or with police or just people looking for a place to go. But right after this, we're going to go check on the other side where most of the cars seem to be going, and we'll keep you updated.
Francis, thank you. I imagine so many people had to be at such a loss trying to arrive home. This happened during rush hour, 6 o'clock in the evening. And then a perimeter was set up so that paramedics could get to this crash site. And they were told they could not go beyond a certain distance. They couldn't get to their cars. They couldn't get to their homes, and they had to leave on foot. So I imagine many people have gone to be with family or with friends, and maybe later when word gets out about this shelter, because it is new, possibly they will arrive there, hopefully knowing that there is a place to stay.
Just the fear and frustration that they've had to deal with is incredible at this point. We want to turn now to NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Ship, who's been tracking the conditions for us this evening. This has been a challenging time for investigators and for people who are out there at the scene.
Absolutely. When you hear about a plane crash, you immediately think about weather conditions or something maybe potentially mechanical happening. We did see in France's live shot that the rain is still coming down. So we just wanted to give you a quick update on where the rain is right now. You can see the clearing edge for parts of our suburbs up towards Berks County, Lehigh Valley, and the Poconos, but specifically over Philadelphia and parts of Northeast Philly, we are definitely still seeing light but steady rain coming down. We do want to point out the logistics of this entire situation, which is we know the small plane crash or the small plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, which is less than 4 miles from the site. We also know that it was traveling to the southwest and our wind speeds were coming in from the southwest as well. So a closer look at some of the observations around the time of the crash. It includes visibility, which was decreased, but not to a dangerous level. So we see visibility decrease to 6 miles per hour quite often, actually. It's only when we see visibility drop below half a mile down to a quarter of a mile that it becomes dangerous. And this was reported just before 6 p.m. Our wind speeds were out in the southwest at 10 miles per hour as well for this particular airport. And as we continue to zoom out the picture, it just shows there's been a steady amount of rain throughout the entire day here. We've also seen low-hanging clouds, low ceilings, lower visibility, which often makes it a bit more difficult to see and to take off and land. But again, not in that really dangerous category. And as we look at our satellite here, you can see widespread clouds still over our entire area. We've been showing you these cameras throughout most of the night, and it hasn't improved here. So behind these clouds is the Comcast Technology Center. Here you can just about make out the Jefferson sign. So again, this just really illustrates when we say low-hanging clouds and slightly decreased visibility. This is what it looks like on some of our cameras here. And we, of course, are showing you the Philadelphia International Airport, where, again, it's not completely clear. There is some decreased visibility. If we look right now, we're down to 5 miles over Philadelphia. For Northeast Philly, visibility is down to 5 miles as well. As we get closer to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we'll start to see the rain stopping. We'll start to see a little bit more clearing as we go through tomorrow. Our wind speeds are going to start picking up tomorrow as well. But right now, similar to what we saw throughout the day, our wind speeds were sustained anywhere between 5 to about 15 miles per hour with wind gusts closer to 20 miles per hour. Again, no wind advisory, nothing that's pushing us into the danger level. So this was a typical rainstorm that was setting up over the Philadelphia area throughout today. And we are just about done with the rain that is pushing through the region and pushing off the coast into the early morning hours. Jackie and Fred, we'll send it back to you.
Brittany, thank you. In talking to Arthur Wolker, aviation expert, and to Claudia Vargas describing the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance doing 600 to 700 flights a year, experienced pilots on board a reliable aircraft, this Lear 55 long range. Our investigative content producer gathered some data about this particular jet, and this does appear to be the very first crash involving a Learjet 55 since 2017. She was able to find out that there have been 61 crashes involving Learjet 55s. That's in the last 42 years, 61 crashes in 42 years. Also, 14 of those crashes happened during takeoff. We know this was an incident that happened during takeoff and only in the air 30 seconds before crashing down at that steep descent and that fast speed. The data also shows there have not been any fatalities linked to this aircraft. 2 people have been injured on this type of plane in history, but most of those are considered minor incidents according to FAA data. So this clearly an anomaly.
Yeah, and it clearly shows the durability of this plane, that it would have such a service record over the past 60 or so years, and or 42 years. And the fact that this plane is the aircraft of choice for an Angel flight, and that they operate so many of these flights, more than 600 flights a year, with the kind of passengers, who are patients, who need life-saving procedures performed, says quite a bit. And that their pilots are so experienced says quite a bit too. But that's what makes this such an anomaly. And that's what makes this such a devastating scene to see, this plane going down in Northeast Philadelphia this evening, and people's lives being turned upside down because of the response, some people having to evacuate their homes. And there you see that image again. The pitch of that descent is probably going to be the main focus, or the first obvious thing that investigators will zero in on in the coming days. We heard the governor speak earlier saying that we are seeing a unified response to an awful aviation accident. Let's take a listen.
The mayor preaches about one Philly. She talks about a unified approach to governing every day. What you're seeing here is a unified response to an awful aviation disaster. For as awful as that aviation disaster was, tonight we also saw the best of Philly. We saw neighbor helping neighbor. We saw Pennsylvanians looking out for one another. I want to reaffirm the comments the mayor said about all of the different agencies working together. And I want to especially thank and salute Philly Fire and Philly Police, who did an extraordinary job this evening. We know that there will be loss in this region, and we want to offer our thoughts and our serious prayers for those who are grieving at this moment. The mayor knows, and I want you all to know, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania stands firmly with our partners in the city. We have, at the request of Commissioner Bethel, 45 state troopers who are on the ground right here in Northeast Philly. We have 25 members of our PennDOT team who are here right now. We have members of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Authority who are here, including our director, Randy Padfield, who joins me behind here. We also have members of DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, who are here to make sure that any hazardous materials are addressed. And as you heard the mayor reference, we're joined by several state representatives and senators. I want to thank them. They will make sure that whatever is needed for this community gets to this community. I also spoke earlier this evening with the United States Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy, who offered his full support to Northeast Philly. And as the mayor alluded to, he has dispatched 4 members of the FAA to Philly, and there are 4 members of NTSB on their way as well. We have all the resources that we need. And again, as the mayor always says, one Philly, we are unified in our approach to deal with this emergency. And again, I'll just end by sharing my prayers, the prayers of my wife, Lori, our First Lady, and on behalf of 13 million Pennsylvanians, we are all here for Northeast Philly tonight in this very, very difficult moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Governor Shapiro right there. And we know that people were unified in the beginning of this disaster, and they will need to continue to be, because there will be many hard days, weeks, and months to come. We know that Shriners Children's Hospital had treated the patient locally. They did put out a statement saying they are heartbroken to confirm that one of their patients and the child's mother was aboard that Jet Rescue Air ambulance that crashed this evening. We now want to go to Mayor Cherelle Parker and what she had to say this evening in that news conference.
Let me start by thanking each of you for being here. I want to go through some basic facts about what we know for certain right now. An aircraft went down in the vicinity of Roosevelt Mall on Cottman Avenue. This occurred shortly after 6 p.m. this evening. As of right now, we have no reports on the number of fatalities. So right now, we're just asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected. We do want to note that several dwellings and vehicles were impacted. So what are we asking you to do for us right now, Philadelphia? We're urging you to please stay away from the scene. If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything. This is still an active scene under investigation. I'm proud to note that all of our federal and state partners, they are either en route here or on the ground with us right now. We did see some neighbors who live in the surrounding community. Just stay in your home. Again, it's still an active scene and it's under investigation. This is only the first of many briefings, I'm sure, to come on this evening. And of course, when daylight comes, when we have more facts and information to share with you. But I do want to say a special thank you right now, again, to all of our federal and state partners and our amazing first responders right here in the city of Philadelphia. Our fire, our EMS, our police department, they have been here working vigorously to ensure that we get this perimeter and the surrounding area blocked off to ensure that we make public safety and health our #1 priority. So we don't have any further information to share at this time. I've spoken to our Governor Josh Shapiro. He is en route. I've spoken to our U.S. Senator John Fetterman. other federal officials, and everyone. All hands on deck. That's where we are right now. Thank you so very much, and we'll have more information to report in the near future.
Thank you.
NBC 10 breaking news.
And we continue to follow breaking news now on a plane crash in Northeast Philadelphia. We have been on the air with you for the past several hours. You can see the medical ambulance rocketing toward the ground before bursting into flames. We have video after video showing the moment it happened and the devastating aftermath.
This view shows just how close this was to row homes blocks away from Roosevelt Mall. Ring video shows the sky light up in orange and red.
And people in the area shocked and scared, as you can imagine, by the impact. This man and woman you see, they see the crash and they retreat into the safety of a home.
Homes, cars, debris on fire in seconds. A man here was in a fast food drive-thru just feet from the flames in the fiery aftermath of this crash.
And witnesses crowding around to get a glimpse of that wreckage, debris scattered, strewn about across many streets in that busy area.
And a huge chunk of the plane found in a parking lot as people circled to get a first-hand look at that wreckage, being warned not to do that and to stay far away from anything they come across.
Thank you for staying with us. I'm Fred Shropshire.
And I'm Jacqueline London. We have been on the air and our streaming channel since before 7 o'clock, bringing you the latest information and the stunning images coming into our newsroom.
We've got a team of reporters monitoring this fast developing situation. NBC 10's Aaron Baskerville kicks off our coverage tonight.
Fred and Jackie, we've been talking for hours. It feels like hours right now. And the unbelievable eyewitness accounts that keep coming in, they just put you unease. You know, you're just uneasy, you're unnerved. You just can't believe what you're hearing from folks. A far different scene right now since we've been out here. Most of the folks that were out here have left. They've gone home. They've heeded some of those things that the mayor and other first responders wanted. As you can see right now, we're near Cottman and Bustleton. And down there is where about, 2 blocks down or so is where all the activity was. That entire area was engulfed in flames. And by now we've all seen all of those different videos showing the carnage and the chaos that was out here. Thankfully, that billowing smoke that was coming from some of the homes right over there, right off of Cottman, is now out, but the parking lots are still filled with first responders as they continue to go through this scene. We do have some video that we want to show you that just kind of paints the picture of what we've been dealing with tonight as I move out of the way of some of the first responders that are trying to come through here. But we've talked to several eyewitnesses today. The look on their faces says it all. Some of the folks saw the plane go down. Some of the folks saw several cars engulfed in flames. Others were basically running for their lives, hearing popping sounds. They just describe all sorts of things that were going on out here. We talked to a man who tells us he witnessed another person on fire after the plane went down. Here's what he told us.
Everything just shook. I thought like the buildings fell or something. I look outside and then all you see is a huge explosion. I look outside and bam, you see all this fire. Then I started shaking and then I see a person running on fire and it was just.
So you saw a person on fire running, right?
Yeah.
Because I saw a video of that, but you actually saw that, right? So once again, are you running outside? Tell me what you're doing.
I didn't know what to do. I was just there. I was just shook because it's like something crazy. You just see somebody on fire. Like that's something you see in a movie.
Yeah, that's about all you can really say right now. You don't expect to see that in person ever. And he saw that right outside of where he was standing. It looked like a movie. I can tell you that Councilman Anthony Phillips, he came to the scene out here a little while ago. His district is right around here. We had the chance to talk to him live. We had the chance to talk to him shortly after that as well. And I asked him several questions, and he called what happened here more than unnerving. He called it disgusting, sickening, and a gut punch. And he said he's going to be demanding answers from everyone as to what happened here, why it happened, and hopefully nothing like this will ever happen again. But that's just a small dose and flavor of what we're hearing out here since we've been out here since about 6:30, 7 o'clock tonight, guys.
A real gut punch, an accurate description, and rightfully so. Aaron, thank you for that report.
We know that on that plane that crashed, it was a medical plane. A girl was returning to Mexico after receiving treatment for an illness in the United States at Shriners Children's Hospital. Was among the 6 people on board. Joining us now on the phone is Mel Bauer from Shriners Hospital for Children. Our condolences to you that one of your pediatric patients and the child's mother was aboard that jet rescue.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I can't imagine your thoughts when you found out that this was a patient who was on board.
It's devastating news. All of our patients are like family to us. It's not just about the care that they receive. It's the whole experience of working with them and their families. The care that they receive is much more than just clinical, and so it is very devastating to us. All of our patients are very dear to us, and to have such a tragedy happen, it's just so hard for all of us. Our goal is always that every child deserves to live their best life, and that's our goal. And so to see one end so tragically is just heartbreaking.
We've been describing this as an aberration. Obviously, it's a tragedy, but it's an aberration. These kinds of flights happen so often, and this has to be especially devastating for that reason.
It is. Shriners is involved in international outreach. We last year cared for children from over 170 countries. This is very routine for us. Things like this are happening all the time. So we have 19 facilities in the U.S. And we work with, like I said, a variety of countries throughout the world. And so what is a very routine part of care of simply transporting, children from an international location to the U.S., we certainly would, we never expected to go like this.
We certainly know of the global reputation of Shriners and what you do for children domestically and internationally, but especially heartbreaking knowing she traveled so far to come here and receive treatment from your facility. And I'm sure when she left, everyone was so hopeful that she was on the path to full recovery.
It's always our hope, and I know that the team there in Philadelphia today had a send-off for her, and so it's always a meaningful but yet emotional time for us, and so it's really just been compounded by the tragic ending.
Mel Bauer, thank you so much for joining us with Shriners Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Mel Bauer, unfortunately, his pediatric patient on board this plane that crashed in Northeast Philadelphia. Thank you for your time. And again, our condolences to you and all of those at your hospital who worked so hard to treat her. Thank you for your time. We now want to turn it over to Claudia Vargas. You've been gathering a lot of details throughout the evening about that plane we were just describing.
Yeah, well, just so heartbreaking to hear that the staff had a send-off for her today. She was on her way home after what we've learned with life-saving care that she received here in Philadelphia, was expected to go home. But now we spoke with Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which was the company that owns the medical airplane that crashed. And they said that these are very experienced pilots. They do 600 to 700 of these flights each year. They're accustomed to transporting patients, especially these pediatric ones. And they're just, in shock that this had happened. We looked at some of that FAA data, and there hasn't been a crash of this particular type of aircraft in 8 years. And even then, the ones, excuse me, that had occurred before, it was just injuries, and they were considered minor from the FAA. So for this to happen has just been very tragic. Now, we did also learn a little bit more about that flight path. It was supposed to go to Missouri, then refuel, and ultimately the final destination was Tijuana. But let's listen to what the official with Jet Rescue Ambulance told us.
What were they doing in the U.S.? What were they doing in Philadelphia?
Medical care. The patient came to the United States for medical care. And the trip was a trip to repatriate her back, and much to our regret, it appears that there are no survivors from that crash.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So was the patient receiving care here at a hospital in Philadelphia?
The patient was receiving, I'm not at liberty to say where and what, especially because it's a minor child. All I can say is she came to the United States for life-saving treatment. The treatment ran its course. She was ready to go home, and we were contracted to bring her back home to Mexico. The flight's ultimate destination was Tijuana International Airport, from which they were scheduled to go home by ground ambulance.
And so since then, we've obviously heard from Shriners Children's Hospital saying that this was their patient and they were the agency that contracted the air ambulance.
But again, so few crashes, the 14 that did occur of the 61 crashes overall on takeoff. And we, of course, know that this plane was on takeoff as well and only in the air 30 seconds before crashing down.
Yeah, and the official said it had just refueled, so hence
Right.
why we probably saw that big ball of fire, unfortunately.
Claudia, thank you.
Thank you.
There have been numerous accounts from witnesses on the ground who have seen the devastation, and also people who live in the neighborhood who have had to evacuate the area. Our Siobhan McGurl has been on the ground speaking to those witnesses tonight. Siobhan, just devastating for people in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, the shock and the heartbreak is being felt throughout this entire community. Behind me, you can see a neighborhood, this residential area, these homes a little bit further down St. Vincent Street here. We're in the direct vicinity of where this crash happened. I've talked to several people tonight who saw the crash happen or saw the direct aftermath, sharing their heartbreak, again, sharing their shock, their confusion in that moment, and now just so dismayed to learn what has unfolded here. One person I spoke with was actually shopping when it happened. He was in the shopping center picking up his mom and his wife. They were getting their nails, and I want to show you some dash camera video. This is from his car, and it recorded the moment the crash happened. Extremely terrifying moments he walked us through. We'll share some of our interview with him.
All of a sudden you just hear this and this bang, and I'm frozen for like 2-3 seconds, and then debris starts hitting my car, and my mom and my wife are panicking. I'm like, I can't back up because I got people behind me.
He said it was difficult to describe the fear he felt in that moment. He said once that feeling of feeling frozen passed, he was able to get out of the car and he saw that someone in front of him was injured. He said a child who had some sort of injury to the head, and he said he took a shirt from off his back and he took rags from his car and tried to help that child. He said eventually that child was taken away. He's wondering how that person is doing tonight. And then he said he was able to get out of there, but he described an extremely chaotic scene. He said that he lives only about a mile away, but it took him more than a half hour to get out of that area. Again, sharing that video with us, sharing his first-person account. He says he'll have difficulty sleeping tonight. Back here live, you can see on St. Vincent Street, some people leaving the area with bags. We did just speak with some people who were evacuated when this all first happened, and they were going back to their homes tonight to check in and see if they're able to go back and return. We know power and gas have been off to many of the homes down St. Vincent Street a little bit. And the family who I just spoke to who was going into their home, it looks like they're coming back over this way. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to get in to their homes tonight, but we know that that shelter is open. Again, you can see all the police here. This road is closed to vehicle traffic, and they're also asking people to not walk on this street if they don't live on this street. So they are asking people when they go by, do you live here? Asking people to stay away from this direct vicinity, as it is still very active. So many first responders still here. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
And it's going to be a very active scene in a neighborhood disrupted for quite some time. Siobhan, thank you.
And we know that traffic in that densely populated and highly congested area of Northeast Philadelphia was only heightened with this accident, with medical crews needing to get to that area immediately. Let's go to Lauren Megg, also in Northeast Philadelphia, near the scene, with more on the response. Lauren.
Oh, Jacqueline, we just heard from Siobhan, who is in the more residential area of Northeast Philadelphia, not far from where I am, but I'm in the more commercial business area at Cottman and the Boulevard. The mall is just over to the left of me, and this where we are at a gas station, what has become a staging area this evening. This is where we heard from the mayor and also the governor. They came to this area with a large group of local officials, first responders, the police commissioner, local state representatives who were all here to show their support and also give us some information about what has been happening and the operation here on the ground. We heard from Governor Shapiro. He called this an awful aviation disaster, but he also said that we are seeing a unified response and something else.
Tonight, we also saw the best of Philly. We saw neighbor helping neighbor. We saw Pennsylvanians looking out for one another. I want to reaffirm the comments the mayor said about all of the different agencies working together. And I want to especially thank and salute Philly Fire and Philly Police, who did an extraordinary job this evening. We know that there will be loss in this region, and we want to offer our thoughts and our serious prayers for those who are grieving at this moment.
And the governor also said that he has spoken with Transportation Secretary, the new Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, and that he dispatched 4 members of the FAA coming here to Philadelphia. He also said that we can, of course, expect to see representatives from the NTSB coming here. He also discussed the state crews that were on site, in addition to the local ones, one notably being the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, also here on site. So we'll see what their challenges are here. Certainly, there may be situations with jet fuel and other debris from the plane that may be around this area, that will be part of the challenge in recovering from this crash. Back to you.
Lauren Make, thank you for that. And of course, you saw debris in the parking lot, part of the plane there, and then many of the eyewitness accounts, people there on the ground also seeing pieces of the plane scattered everywhere. So we know the recovery will be a long one in many aspects.
Yeah, because of that debris field and the location of it being in a residential area. They had to evacuate a whole bunch of people from that neighborhood, had to leave their homes. Let's go now to Francis Wang, who's joining us live from Samuel Fells High School, where they are opened up the shelter for people who need a place to stay tonight. Francis.
Yeah, Fred, Jackie, we're not seeing a lot of people come to the shelter just yet. Again, they really just announced it a few hours ago, and usually it takes some time for the word to get out and for people to make a decision, but they are setting up at this high school behind me. They've set up shelters through the American Red Cross and the city's Office of Emergency Management before for tragedies and other emergency situations like this one. We're not sure if more people are coming tonight, but they said they're going to be ready. We did see about 5 or 6 American Red Cross vehicles in the last hour. Those were the volunteers who were coming to stage up this shelter. We spoke with some volunteers who also didn't know exactly what they would be doing tonight and into the morning hours, but they said they were ready, that they wanted to help. We also spoke with Councilmember Anthony Phillips, who represents this district. I know he was speaking with our other reporter, Aaron Baskerville, for some time earlier near the crash site. He told me so far only about 3 people are here, but he's been listening to their stories and that they are ready. And he also asked me to tell those of you watching, if any of you do want to help, the way you can is by coming here to Samuel Fells High School and making donations. So far, we've seen 1 car drop off water bottles. That's obviously always essential in a situation like this. They're also looking for maybe food or clothing. You know, a lot of times people bring things that aren't needed. So I asked, hey, is there something that you guys actually need right now? We don't want people to show up with things that you don't need and make things more complicated. But right now, the council member is telling me they need all the donations they can get. Again, we've only seen just a handful of people so far, but those 3 people obviously very impacted by what's happening tonight, whether they can't safely get access to their home because it's blocked off, maybe they can't get to their cars, maybe they don't have a place to go tonight. It's just one less thing they have to worry about. So if you are in need of a place to go, or maybe you're just looking for a place to stage for the night or reunite with loved ones, friends, family members, the shelter set up through the American Red Cross is here at Samuel Fells High School. It's about 3 miles away from the crash site. The address is 5500 Langdon Street. There's plenty of room. I'm told this high school has about 3,000 students, and the Red Cross, again, has a lot of experience setting up here at this high school, and they set up pretty quickly here tonight. Jackie, Fred.
And a quick response was much needed this evening for this tragedy that we're watching unfold. Francis Wang, thank you.
Right now, we want to go to Tracy Davidson in our newsroom with details on this flight path. Everyone with questions about how this could happen. Tracy.
So this started around 6 o'clock. FlightAware shows that the plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport 6:06. About 3 seconds later, there's no record of its movement. So it was about 30 seconds in the air. But look at the flight path. This is on your screen. Look at the green line. That shows how far the plane made it. The plane made it about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have recordings from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off. Listen to this initial communication.
Medevac Med Service 056 on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
That's when the plane was preparing for departure. Next clip that you're going to hear is when the plane was cleared for takeoff.
Medevac Med Service 056 affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
And shortly after that, air traffic control makes contact with the plane on departure, and then you'll hear the pilot respond.
Medevac Med Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra, 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
Everything seems smooth. After takeoff, air traffic control tries to make contact with the pilot again, though. You will hear they get no response from the Medevac Med Service.
Medevac Med Service Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056 Northeast Tower, you on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056 Northeast Tower, how do you hear this transmission?
And there are even a few more attempts from air traffic control to make contact with the plane. Next, you'll hear air traffic control refer to the plane as a lost aircraft.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there? Position 755, we have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
So air traffic control grounded all flights, no flights in and out of the area. We did talk to Arthur Walk. He's an aviation expert that we turn to in times like this. He tells us that it seems to be, from all the information that we have so far, and really that's preliminary, he says that it seems to be mechanical.
The airplane was at a relatively light weight, only 6 people aboard. That's not a lot. And even if you add the equipment, that's not a lot either. So nothing about the numbers of people or the equipment on board or the way it was configured would give you any indication why the airplane descended in the manner it did.
But again, we'll get more answers as the days go on. We know NTSB is on site, FAA will be involved, and NTSB will take the lead. And we have heard that there are people from the NTSB already on site. Fred, Jacqueline?
And all we heard from that pilot was everything is good. We never heard a distress call from that pilot with that communication. Of course, only being in the air 30 seconds, no time to really make a distress call.
And that's chilling to even know. We will find out in the coming days. Let's talk about the forecast now. We know that the visibility was challenged. We know that we've had precipitation and a low ceiling. Let's go now to Brittany Ship, who's been tracking the forecast for us this evening. Brittany.
Yes, that's right. We've been tracking the weather throughout the entire day. No, it wasn't a dry and crystal clear day, but this is just a typical rainstorm that we saw throughout the Philadelphia area. And that means we didn't see a lot of rain. We saw about 1/3 of an inch total throughout the entire day. We are still dealing with rain showers over Northeast Philly at this time, but we still want to illustrate what happened today. So we know that this small medical jet took off from the Northeast Philadelphia Airport, which is just a little less than 4 miles from where the plane went down. We've heard you mention it was only in the air for about 30 seconds, and this illustrates that. It only went less than 4 miles here to the southwest. And we did take a look at the observations at the Northeast Philadelphia Airport about 10 minutes before this all happened at 5:54 p.m. That was the latest observation that came in. Visibility was down to 6 miles. Wind speeds were out of the southwest sustained at 10 miles per hour. So again, those are not strong wind speeds. We're not seeing any wind gusts upwards of 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. There were no wind advisories. This was just, again, a typical rainstorm that was moving through today. We did, however, have low-hanging clouds, low ceiling with the rain that moved through most of this Friday. And our wind speeds were ranging throughout the day between 5 to about 12 miles per hour. We still have, again, rain coming down over the area in Northeast Philly. When we have low clouds, it does make it a little bit more difficult to see or to land or to even take off. And we just want to turn off our radar and show you the satellite. So again, lots of clouds throughout the entire region here. And when we switch you over to some of our live cameras, this is one of the first times we've been able to even make out the Comcast Technology Center. And then you can see Jefferson a bit clearer. And the reason for that is we are finally getting towards the tail end of the system, where we had the forecast where the rain would move out anywhere between 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. We're starting to see the visibility lift throughout parts of the region. Right now, visibility is down to 5 miles in Philadelphia, Northeast Philly, still around 5 miles. That's very similar to earlier in the evening when all of this happened. We had visibility around 6 miles. And just to put it in perspective, typically when we see the National Weather Service issue a dense fog advisory, it's due to visibility being less than about half a mile. So again, this wasn't perfect visibility, but it was pretty typical for the type of rainstorm that we saw today. As we look at some of our wind speeds, it's still similar to what we saw earlier as well, ranging between 5 to about 15 miles per hour sustained, potentially seeing wind gusts upwards about 20. But we tend to see advisories issued or wind advisories are issued right around wind speeds that are up to about 40 or 50 miles per hour, not at this rate, not at this speed. So again, a typical storm, yes, weather was a factor, but nothing that is showing that anything was at dangerous levels. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Brittany.
Right now, we want to go back to NBC 10's Aaron Baskerville live on the ground in this area of Northeast Philadelphia. Aaron, all evening, you've been getting unbelievable eyewitness accounts from people there on the ground. In your years of reporting, I know you've never seen anything like that, those eyewitness accounts, but also the reaction from first responders and what you saw on their faces when you arrived on scene.
Yeah, as we talked earlier, you know, when you come to a scene like this, you immediately know that it's something different. It is not the same thing that you have covered over the past 2 decades or so. When we were coming here earlier tonight around 6:20 or so, we saw a whole bunch of first responders, cop cars flying by us. That's the first indication that it's something serious. And then when you get on scene, you notice that every single place is blocked off. We're talking about every alley, every side street, every parking lot. Any place you want to go, they are not allowing you to go there. That's another indication of how serious it is. And then you see first responders and police officers moving at a certain pace and a certain speed with a certain urgency. That's also another tip that, hey, this is something significant, a little bit more serious than what we're normally seeing on an everyday. And of course, it's far worse than anything we could have imagined. People's faces, the eyewitness accounts that we're talking to, you can see them. People's voices are cracking as you are talking to them. They're the shock on their face. It's like I said before, it's just extremely hard to, you know, describe and get that point across through the camera to you guys. But folks are still trying to digest. And as we've been talking to a lot of eyewitnesses, we also had the chance to talk to a councilman who showed up here, Anthony Phillips. He came out here a little while ago. He told me he had a whole bunch of constituents calling him, asking him why this happened, how this happened, how can we make sure this won't happen again? And the councilman, to say the least, was angry, and he wanted his own answers. And here's our interaction when I talked to him just a little while ago. Let's be straight up. Let's be blunt. How unnerving is this? This plane goes down in this area with so many people.
Oh, it's beyond unnerving. It's actually sickening. It's hurting. It's disgusting. The way when I heard about it, it hit me in the heart. Like it was like a gut punch, right? And right now, that is what people are feeling. They're like, what is next? Like we're at a state where we want to have safety and security where we live, and right now there's uncertainty of whether or not we're making sure everything is safe. that we are used to being safe. And I think that's the way a lot of residents are feeling. And right now I'm here to make sure that, we're there for them and let them know we're going to be okay. It's going to be tough to get through and it's devastating, but we're going to get through this somehow in Philadelphia.
Ground, Aaron, we understand.
Tonight, new details about those critical black boxes. The NTSB confident they will gather data from them as questions mount over air traffic control staffing. What we're learning about the moments before the deadly accident, the supervisor allowing an air traffic controller to leave early with just one left on duty. Chopper flights near the airport now restricted, and the close call involving similar aircraft just a day before. Plus, the FAA struggling with air traffic controller recruitment. The head of the union, stark warning.
It's a 30-year low in air traffic control staffing.
The lives lost, the young skaters and their parents, and what we're learning about the pilots involved. Breaking news in Northeast Philadelphia tonight. A fiery scene engulfing the streets following a jet crash there. Is it the start of a new trade war? President Trump set to impose 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. 10% on China, what it could mean for the price you pay. And Andrea Mitchell in Panama as Marco Rubio makes his first trip as Secretary of State there after President Trump threatened to take control of the canal.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening once again from Washington, where the NTSB has just released an update on its investigation into Wednesday night's deadly midair collision near Reagan National Airport. The lead investigator saying investigators have already started interviewing air traffic controllers who were on duty at the time of the crash. This after days of outside speculation as to whether there was proper control tower staffing at the time of the accident. Officials also revealing they now have all the black boxes from the stricken airliner and the Army Black Hawk helicopter and are hopeful they will provide solid and critical data. Also today, the FAA moving ahead of the investigation and is now restricting helicopter flight corridors within DC National's airspace. 67 people in total died in the crash, and recovery of victims continued today, albeit slowly, as teams await the arrival of heavy-duty barge equipment. Let's start tonight with Tom Costello.
With thick fog hanging over the Potomac River, the black boxes from the regional jet and the Black Hawk helicopter are now at the NTSB lab in D.C. for a complete readout.
We have a high level of confidence that we will be able to get a full download in the very near future.
On the river, divers spent the day working to recover more victims' remains. The D.C. fire chief says as of this morning, 41 bodies have been recovered, 28 of them positively identified. With victims still in the water, a salvage team will soon work to raise the fuselage.
For us to recover the rest of the remains that we are going to need to get the fuselage out of the water.
On any given day, some 100 helicopters fly in and around Reagan Airport airspace, many of them military flights. Today, the FAA announced it is restricting helicopter traffic around the airport to all but police and medevac flights. New video, which first aired on CNN, offers a more clear view of the crash. Today, President Trump again said the chopper was flying too high.
It was above the 200 limit by double. Shouldn't have been there.
Investigative sources tell NBC News the chopper may have been flying at 350 to 400 feet when it crashed into the plane.
You have to be 200 feet and below. That's because landing traffic is coming literally over the top of you.
Retired Marine Colonel John Siligoy spent decades flying choppers in and around D.C. airspace and says the Black Hawk was clearly flying out of its zone.
Pat 25, this is Georgia in flight. Pat 25, pass on this Georgia.
And he says air traffic controllers should have been much more direct in their commands to the chopper pilot.
You have to be very specific and then directive in this case. He might have made a call like Pat 25, turn left 90 degrees immediately, or Pat 25, turn right 90 degrees. He didn't do that.
The day before the crash, another regional jet aborted its landing, also at Reagan National, after receiving a cockpit warning of helicopter traffic.
Brickyard 4514 is going around, turning on to 250, 3000. Brickyard 4514, what was the reason for the go around?
We had an RA with the helicopter traffic below us, Brickyard 4514.
On Wednesday, just a single controller was handling both helicopter and plane traffic after a supervisor allowed one controller to leave early. For years, the airport has struggled with understaffing in the tower. NTSB investigators will interview controllers about Wednesday's crash and air traffic volume at DCA.
Our job is to just come out with the probable cause, but then more importantly, make recommendations so that this type of tragedy never occurs again.
And Tom, when are we going to find out what they have learned from those planes' black boxes?
Yeah, the NTSB hopes to get a readout tomorrow, but it is now saying it will probably not share that information publicly, at least not right away, Lester.
All right, Tom Costello, thanks. Moments ago, I spoke with one of the board members of the NTSB at the front of this investigation and asked out about who was working on the control tower that night.
What we need to find out is, did the controllers that were working then have the right backgrounds, the right information, and the ability to do their job correctly?
NTSB board member Todd Inman says the agency is looking into whether staffing in the control tower may have played a role in Wednesday night's tragedy. Have you spoken to the controllers who were on duty that day, and can you describe the general conversations?
Yes, we have spoken to one of the controllers that was actively working on the day of the incident. I can't describe the actual nature of the conversation just yet, but I can say this: we're getting very good cooperation.
Air traffic control staffing has been a problem for the FAA for years, and it's thousands of controllers short of staffing goals.
The amount of fatigue.
Nick Daniels is president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. Can you tell me in general, with controllers now being a prominent part of this, how your workers are feeling and doing?
Well, the air traffic controllers across the country are devastated. This is life-changing for the controllers that were working that day. But we know the responsibility of the American public, or any person that steps on an aircraft. They're our responsibility. They're in great hands, but we know the gravity. This is one of those times that we all have to take another look, a deep breath, and go back to work.
A lot of the conversation has to do with controller staffing at this and other towers around the country. How much of an issue do you see that to be right now?
It's a very large issue. It's a 30-year low in air traffic control staffing.
The FAA obviously has standards as to what the staffing level can be at any given time. Are those largely adhered to?
Right now, we often work short in a lot of our facilities, but when we cannot meet the staffing requirements, we end up beginning to reduce capacity in order to keep the safety level at what it should be.
So could this be a wake-up call to some extent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any chance that we have to talk about the fragility of the air traffic system and the ways to improve it, we should be out doing that.
The President of the United States raised questions about the quality of people being recruited into these jobs. How do you respond to that?
Every certified professional air traffic controller, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, has gone through rigorous testing to become that controller. Background checks, security checks, medical checks, and that's just to get in the door.
Do you anticipate being able to speak to the controllers who are on duty?
Yes, actually spoke to them the night of the actual incident. Again, they themselves are devastated, this being the life-changing moment. I plan to go spend some time with them.
There are a lot of questions, but certainly a broad determination to get to the facts and figure out if lives can be saved in the future. Those lives, they came from all walks. The 67 people lost when the plane and the helicopter collided. Tom Yamas with more of their stories tonight.
67 lives, moms and dads, Girl Scouts, pipe fitters, soldiers, and so many young, promising figure skaters gone in an instant.
It's just this place of pain that I can't access fully yet. I keep saying that the analogy I'm using is it's like my daughter's room. I can't walk in there.
Andy Byer lost his 12-year-old daughter, Brielle, and his wife, Justina. Brielle was an up-and-coming skater from Virginia who was training in Wichita. Justina, the mom who did it all for her kids, including traveling to help Brielle.
Talk to me about the moments when she was out there performing.
I mean, she had just the most amazing season this season. She won almost every competition she was in. She qualified, which was like a life goal for her.
1984 Olympic gold medalist Scott Hamilton knew many of the victims.
I was just in Wichita, and I got to see so many of these skaters and coaches. And for this to happen just days after those championships were over, it's just devastating, shocking. It's It just doesn't make any sense.
Today, we are learning more about who was on board both the American Airlines flight and the military helicopter. The crew of the Black Hawk included Andrew Eves, who served in the Navy for a decade before joining the Army, and Ryan O'Hara, a 28-year-old who served in Afghanistan, while Samuel Lilly and Jonathan Campos piloted the American Airlines flight. Tracy Grubbs says his friend Campos was so proud when he became a captain for American.
Know about pilots is they always go to strive to be the best. He was one of the best.
Lily's dad says he was set to get married this fall, posting, "I was so proud when Sam became a pilot. Now it hurts so bad I can't even cry myself to sleep." Among the 60 passengers on Flight 5342, Kia Duggins, a civil rights lawyer, about to start as a professor at Howard University. A Wichita native, Kia attended services at Tabernacle Bible Church just this past Sunday. Minister Annie Montgomery was a mentor.
She was absolutely a beautiful, radiant person on the outside, but more than that, I saw the beauty and the radiance from the inside.
Mikey Stovall was one of 7 friends on board returning from their annual duck hunting trip to Kansas. His mom, Christina, says he was a wonderful father to his 11-year-old son.
He was only 40 years old. He is loved by everybody. Mikey's one of these, from when he was little, everybody will tell you, Mikey loves everybody.
Up and down the East Coast, figure skating clubs are struggling to make sense of the loss. In Virginia, one club lost 14 members of its community. Rena Lynn remembering her friend, 11-year-old Lydia Livingston.
She was always very happy, and she would always help people if they were sad or hurt.
Tom Yamas, NBC News, Washington.
All right, we turn now to some breaking news in Northeast Philadelphia, where there has been a fiery jet crash. Morgan Chesky reports with late details.